Hello, hello. I gotta do a test because my mic's been playing up all day. Hope you're all well. So welcome. Some of you might be new to the channel. Welcome to the Alternate Corner. My name's Dylan. I'm from Wales, if you can't tell by my accent. All the way from Wales, boy. So Cymru. We call Wales Cymru. So I'm from Cymru and obviously big supporter of the Free Zachariah Anderson campaign. And I'm gonna listen back to my audio because my audio's been shit all day. Not got it right. I put an extension on my volume and it's fucked. Right, so bear with me. I need to just. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. All day I've been whispering and it's been loud as shit. So, bit of change of plan today. I got this video uh that Solomon did today. My feral housewife. Hi, feral. Let's go, guys. Where's the symbols? Come on. At least to send you another DM. Send away, Kayla. Send away. That's fine, Kayla. I've not done anything. I'm waiting on you, Kayla. So you tell me what I need to do, and I will do it. So nothing's happening until you tell me, and I'll ship the money. So, as promised, you see, I just literally jumped from one stream, grabbed a coffee, got up a quick piss in, and now I'm straight on here. I'm not organized yet. Um, Obviously, this stream, so my it's weird because for me it's 10:15 in the evening, but my day stream, one person's gonna win that. I've not pulled it yet. Today, just make sure you got the symbols in the chat and you straight away you're entered. So one person's gonna win another t-shirt tonight, and then tomorrow for my Johnny Depp trial, 1 o'clock Eastern, um, someone's gonna win a t-shirt then as well. Um, you're okay. Okay. Okay, Kayla, that's fine. If you're happy to, I'll message you back now. Okay. I'll wait for your response now, Kayla, and then we'll announce it. Happy days. Glad I could make it today. My sister called. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw you on the thread. Nice to meet you, Farrell. Lovely to meet you. Free Zachariah Anderson. I normally have it at the end of this, but I cocked up. Right. I need to do a quick poll and then I will play this. I'm sure you've all seen this, but I haven't seen it. Okay. So I can put it up quickly here. Hi, go on. It's in. Let's go. Let's go. Right. Very kindly, I am going to be changing this. Oh, you see, if you're a YouTuber, don't fucking be more prepared. Um, okay. As um, oh no, I can't do it that way. Shit. Okay, I'll have to just say it. Right. So for this stream, let me just delete some of this and I'll put it up on screen. So bit of news for you guys. Let me just save that now. So obviously, we thought one person's going to win a T-shirt tonight, worth $36, but Kayla Ollie won a T-shirt last night, um, and very kindly donated it for tonight. So tonight we're giving away two T-shirts. I did go. I did. I'm gonna buy one definitely. I bought the white one. I want to get the same one, or the other. I'm not sure yet. But so tonight, thanks to Kayla, I'm gonna give. Well, basically, so she won it last night and was going to donate it, and the person she was going to donate it to already has ordered one. So they very kindly have given the prize back, and now we've got two T-shirts to give away. So thank you to you as well, Kayla, um, for your generosity of giving it back. So we're going to give away two T-shirts tonight. Oh, geez, there's loads of people here now. Hi, Josie. Hi, Julie. Right. I know most of you seen this, right? But I'm going to play it again because I've not seen it. So I hope you don't mind me playing this. And I'm going to put a poll up to choose the next video. I'm going to give you two choices, and then it's up to you which video we look at, right, tonight after this one. So I'm going to start this video now.
She admitted it in that text message to
I will do now, and then we'll get going. I'll do a poll. Look out for the poll. We'll choose one. So thanks to everyone being here. It's a bit rushed. I literally just finished my other stream, so sorry. I'm very disorganized in this one tonight. So we'll play this one, and then we get to choose one of two videos that we'll do. I presume everyone's seen this, so if you have seen it, I'll play it 1.25 speed because it's only probably me that hasn't seen this. So here we go.
Rosalio that she was trying to establish a paper trail to take my brother to family court. It was very clear.
All right, I'm doing something a little bit different today. I'm joined by Solomon Anderson. And Solomon, great guy, great to meet you. I'm sorry this is a very sober subject, though, so I don't want to come in with too much levity. I kind of want you to help me understand, as somebody who is not familiar with the case other than the broad strokes that he was convicted, and that there's a large amount of controversy, especially amongst the law tubers, that the conviction was odd to them. All right. Well, let's go back. I hate to say to the beginning, but at least the beginning of their relationship. When did you first get to know Sadie Beecham, and when was she introduced to your family? How was all that?
Oh man, I honestly am not sure that I remember the very first time that I met her. One of the first times that I met her, for sure. Um, I was at a tavern in Port Washington, Wisconsin, where we had gone out for some drinks, and a childhood friend of mine was tending bar, and that was an interesting night. Ended up breaking up a bar fight and stuff, but yeah, a guy tried to tackle me, and I ended up tossing him out the back door of the bar. So and that's very vividly why I remember that being my first meeting of her, one of the first meetings of her, and it had to have been pretty early on in their relationship. I think I was maybe 21 or 22, something like that. I was pretty young. So that was, oh man, that's 17 years ago, 16 years ago, something like that. Maybe I was 23, but it was a while ago.
Was Zachariah? Now, is it Zachariah or Zach?
I mean, he's always been Zach to our family. His full name is Zachariah, so in all the headlines, it's Zachariah. So very specifically to try and differentiate between all other Zachs that exist, we're using his full name in our like hashtag free Zachariah Anderson, things like that.
Okay, but if I reference him, I want to be careful of people's names, and people like to be addressed a certain way. Like Jonathan may prefer Jonathan and not John, so I try to be respectful.
Yeah, no,
so
Zach's fine.
Okay, was Zach with you at the time?
In that bar fight, yeah, he was there. Yeah, yeah, he was there, and he helped finish the bar fight. He definitely stood in the way and shut it down. There was a guy that was upset because I had looked at his girlfriend or something like that in the bar, and then chaos ensued. So it was just stupid kids in youth trying to peacock in a bar.
He's your older brother, right?
He is by 4 years, 3.5,
Okay.
3 3/4 years or whatever it is. But his birthday's in July, mine's in March. So when he turns, his next birthday, he'll be 4 years older than me.
So he was kind of protecting you, looking out for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so now,
Yeah, per as usual for our childhood.
oh,
Whether it was mischief or otherwise that we got into, he still always looked out for me. As because my dad was a single father for so many years during our childhood. My older two brothers looked out for me and for each other quite a bit. I mean, that doesn't mean that we didn't fight like dogs, but like boys do. We were kids, so we grew up and had to tend each other and be there for each other. And in a lot of ways, Zach and Josh were both part of my personal parental unit, looking out for me and exposing me to the world. Probably before I should have been. As a kid and a teenager, but the reality was that overall an overwhelming good influence on my life, I think.
okay. So let's get into their relationship. Did they date for a long time and get married?
Yeah, not married, no,
Oh,
but they
never got
did. Yeah, they dated for a really long time. I mean, they had some rocky times in their relationship. I know that there were some issues. My brother traveled a lot. After a certain amount of time, he worked for AT&T for like 13 years, give or take. And he was like a local technician around the Milwaukee area, and then he took a position out on the west side of Wisconsin. He became a lineman. He would travel down to like Indiana and California and places like that, where they would run fiber optic lines. So he would run telephone, fiber optics, high speed internet lines, and do a lot of they call it, like the machine is called the ditch witch, where they would bury
Yeah.
cable. So he would bury cable, or they would string line up mountainsides and do things like that in all kinds of weather and heat. So he got compensated fairly well to do that, and he used that money to then set aside for his family to support Sadie and their daughter, because they only had one child for most of their relationship, or over half of their relationship, 3/4 or so. And then at some point he knocked her up again, and they found out that they had twin boys. So they have 3 children altogether, resulting from 2 different pregnancies.
Okay. Now, are there any other children from any other group? That's all the
Nope,
children involved.
just
Okay.
all the children involved in their family unit.
Okay. So now the general outline that I've seen is that things were pretty much fine. I mean, I'm sure there was rocking, whatever, but their relationship was essentially solid till around 2019 or so.
Yeah, give or take. I mean, I had warned him almost 2 years prior to the 2019 fight, the breakup fight. I'm using quotes because he understood that they were on a break, that they were just taking space and not broken up. That was the communication that he had understood, and that was actually discussed during the trial, where she claims that she had absolutely cut it off with him. There's some evidence, I think, that actually supports my brother's view of it, that was presented in the trial, but I'll get into that in a little bit. There were some situations that had risen in the like 1 to 2 years before that 2019 incident that were red flags for me, and I had gone through my own custody dispute prior to that, and I told him, I said, this is a situation where I think that she's setting up a paper trail to try and hang you for child support, and I'd just be really careful, because it seems inflammatory intentionally, and he
Can
said,
you?
I know.
Okay, that's just kind of talking around it. Can you elaborate at all? Like,
I don't want to go
some.
into specific. I mean, I had spoken a little bit about how she had stolen like over $3,000, taken her best friend Rebecca to Arizona, had lied to him about it, and avoided that situation. He was really mad and broke some furniture over that situation. But
Stole from
um,
him?
yeah, she stole over $3,000 from him to take her best friend. And to be clear, her best friend Rebecca and Zach, they didn't really get along. They had a difference in viewpoint, and Rebecca was sort of a toxic element in Zach and Sadie's relationship. Rebecca would sort of would rub Zach the wrong way, was kind of dismissive, condescending, really rude to him, and issues like that. Zach had complained to me about it a number of times. That in this situation, it was like Sadie was choosing Rebecca over their relationship, and it was sort of an uncomfortable, exchange between them, and that was their drama to deal with, and I never really got in the middle of it. But Rebecca was never really polite to me either. So I can see why her general I don't
Demeanor?
demeanor, her dismissive behavior and stuff like that would rub him wrong. And if she was, chirping in Sadie's ear, how that would just build, tension in a relationship. But that was their relationship and wasn't really my business to get in the middle of. And to be clear, there was that situation where she had stolen this money and lied to him, but she had told him that the money was going to be used for the twin boys for their daycare expenses.
How did she steal the money then? It sounds like he
Well,
had
he
knowledge.
gave her the money to pay for the
Right.
boys' daycare expenses, and then she left for a trip to Arizona. Then the daycare called him asking for that money because it was a problem. So she had taken the money and then had treated her best friend to this trip and went and spent the money there instead of paying this bill that was what she told him it was for. So there was this level of dishonesty in their relationship that was, it smelled bad from an outsider's perspective. He was livid about it, and understandably. But then there was some issues with picking her up at the airport. She ghosted him, and he had all the kids in the minivan actually waiting for her to come out of the concourse at the terminal. She avoided him intentionally, getting her aunt to pick her up. Went home, refused to answer the phone, and there was like this back and forth. And actually, her aunt was a witness to all this and was really upset with Sadie about it too. And it was a major issue. And I mean, did my brother overreact? Yeah, he did in this situation. But
What happened exactly that would
I mean, they got in an argument, and he threw the TV on the floor, and he broke like a roll top desk and stuff like that. So I mean, he didn't lay hands on her, but he broke some furniture, and then I think he was. She called the cops because he had broken some stuff, and he was like, I never touched her." And they were like, "Well, you can't break furniture either." And he was like, "Fair enough." But it was it was an issue. And I don't. I mean, everybody has ugly moments in their relationships, right, where
Mhm.
they don't behave like the way they should. And I think that by and large, in this situation, I can't say that he expressed it, his anger or his irritation with the situation appropriately. But the reality was that he still did not lay hands on her. He still maintained control. He still, even though he was very angry about this, about the deception, the lies, the theft, that he still didn't go after her at all. And
But that
and
would be her specifically. And
she
I'm
was
going to point something
her
out.
deception. Yeah.
Right. But the issue that I can sort of see, and I don't want to over exaggerate, but we started off that one of the earliest memories of the pair of them was you were in a fight. So there was a physical, violent confrontation, and now
Well,
we're
somebody
into
came after her,
violence.
and he
Right.
said, "I'm sorry, you have a problem with the situation." And then the guy cocked a fist back, and there was a bar fight, right? So I mean, the reality was that like he didn't ensue violence. He didn't propagate violence
Mm.
wherever he went. And there is a huge difference between Zach as a at that time a 26-year-old person, and
Mhm.
and Zach as a 39-year-old person, 38-year-old person at that time. So 10 years of maturity and all kinds of things that had grown with him, and
Mhm.
a lot of that being that he's not like a person that would escalate to ever laying his hands on a woman. He never laid his hands on a woman ever.
And I know I'm being devil's advocate here, and I apologize. I'm just trying to think in terms of it. Like, one, you guys have Old Testament names. I'm going to guess that you had a particular kind of upbringing, and in that upbringing, striking a female would probably be verboten.
Oh, absolutely. I had an alcoholic grandfather that was highly abusive, uh, and my dad was the one that had stepped in to intervene in those situations. And so my dad had raised us absolutely to not lay your hands on a woman. It was something that was very important, that he instilled in us from a very early age, that he maintained.
The problem that comes in is this: she wasn't the one he's accused of killing. And I know
True.
that sounds bad, but
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that your upbringing may not have had the same condition when it came to males and fighting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we fought as boys. I mean, of course. But I mean, Zach's also not a jealous man. So if she was going to go find other people, and I mean, those were also pieces of evidence presented in the case where
Mhm.
they even had a recording that they played where he said, you're supposed to be doing you, and I'm doing me. What is this conversation?" And that's a reference to her dating other people and him dating other people because he was dating Christine. Like, yes, he admitted to feeling jealousy about the
Mhm.
situation, but that's not jealous controlled rage. That's not like, I need to control every aspect of your life. If that was the case, then how had he traveled for a great part of his career with AT&T, not been around to watch everything that she did?
Yeah, can we go into that? Because one thing that came out is that your brother was a stalker. I mean, I don't know a better way to put that, but there was supposedly evidence of stalking, harassment, GPS trackers being put on vehicles. Can we address all that? And
Well, there was never a
what are
GPS
kind
tracker placed on a vehicle ever. That was inferred by the state, but it was never done. In fact, they actually presented that the GPS tracker that was purchased was still brand new in the box, never used, never utilized. That was absolutely a fabrication by the prosecution. No GPS tracker was ever placed on a vehicle. Period. Was not done. So was there a GPS tracker purchased? Yep. But my brother and I had spoken because he helped me with my business. I had a construction remodeling business at the time. He had spoken with me at length about putting trackers on the work vehicles, my work van, my contractor van, and if he was using his van, that he would put a tracker on that as well. If we're going to be letting people use the vehicles, that unfortunately the state had twisted that into him using it only for the purpose of watching Sadie. Unfortunately, it was bad timing that he had looked at and purchased this device, but this was a conversation that he and I had specifically had in months leading up to this situation was how to free up a little bit more of my time, because at the time I was working 12 to 16 hours a day. I was at the job site all day. I was training I had two employees. I was training my guys. I was there holding their hand, making sure they were doing the job right. I was also bidding jobs and doing all this other paperwork, and then I would buy materials and do everything else. So I wanted to be able to train my guys up well enough where I could take my contractor van and give that to one of my guys. But then there's the issue of, are they driving it for their own personal work? Are they doing all those other things? And that conversation was also part of the debate on whether or not to let my guys work as a crew to just drive my vehicle around. It was an important aspect of moving forward with the business. So long term, that was an issue to bring up. And related to the business, there were these income properties that my brother had purchased, that were bought off a sheriff's sale. He had three different properties that he had purchased. He had two of them active at the time. He was looking to buy another one off a sheriff's sale, and he and I had spoken about a property. I can't tell you the address of it, but I'm sure that in the evidence presented or that is in the discovery, that they have all the searches of the sheriff's sales that were going to be active on all these properties. He had taken money out of his settlement with AT&T, out of his retirement account, effectively. Had taken it and was getting ready to go buy another property off a sheriff's sale. If you're unfamiliar with that, sheriff's sale is a foreclosure auction where you can go and you can bid on properties. So they go and they sell off foreclosures at auction to try and cover the liens on the property, and then you gain control of the property. You have to go in, you get it as is, you have to fix it up and do a bunch of work on it. So there were talks about keeping a property that needed to be worked on as a backup for my crew if we ran out of work or anything like that, if bids had come up dry. And there were talks about a specific property that had a really good return on investment, was in a decent enough neighborhood to get a good rent and things like that he was highly interested and motivated to go get. He did not get the property at the auction, but it was something that we had talked about very specifically. So the state alleged that the $50,000 that he pulled out of his account was, one, they claimed that it was drug money and it was seized by the Fed, because I guess my brother's lawyers didn't file the right paperwork. But the reality was that it came out of his retirement account. He pulled it out of his investments. He withdrew it out of the bank specifically to use for that type of currency, to use for these investment.
when was that done?
I would have to look at the receipt. It was presented in the court, but it was in the month prior to, I think it was
2020.
Yeah, it was in 2020. It was like right before this all occurred. He had $47,000 in cash that they had seized, and they presented that. Like,
How about his other purchases? You said you did a couple other fire. I'm saying fire.
Those were all.
Sorry.
Yeah, those were all previous. So I had done work on those properties 4 years before that, 5 years before that, something like that.
And he had invested in those as well.
Yeah,
Same
yeah, he had renters in them.
Okay.
And he
So
rented them out below market value to people that were in a bad way financially. One of them was Sadie's brother. He had a let's see, it was a 2-bedroom condo in Milwaukee that he had rented out to Sadie's brother to help him out when child support had his income knocked to a level where he was struggling to afford enough space for his family. So situations like that where my brother's not a bad person. Did he do everything right? No, but he went out of his way to help people that needed it. He always did. People that needed a leg up. Stephen Lenz, that guy that they had mentioned him in the courtroom. That guy, he struggled to find a job or maintain employment. He had some issues, emotionally, psychologically, and things like that he had to try and work through, and some other issues that kind of hung over his head. My brother tried to get him away from that type of life, and help him recenter himself, and help him give him a path forward. And like it it didn't work. He lived in Zach's trailer for a short time, and then ended up moving back in with his dad, I think. But the reality was that he had a huge heart, and he tried to help people that really needed it.
Now, when did he and Sadie actually stop living together?
And that was 2011 when he bought his house. He bought the house with enough space for the whole family, but yeah, they had enough friction living together in a confined space that she moved into a different location, and then they just lived separately. He was also traveling and stuff like that. My brother's a very like particular type of person. He sleeps very light, and so he's got a like kind of an irregular sleep schedule. So sometimes he'd just be awake in the middle of the night. And I lived with him for a short period, and he would wake up with literally the sound of a mouse in the house. He would wake up with the scratching of a mouse. So
Okay, so then from 2011 to 2019 or so, then they were in what,
in a
friends with
relationship,
benefits or not?
but living separately.
Okay. And what was the impetus in 2019 that said, okay, it just can't go on? What's happening?
They
Why
had
did
a disagreement. It was preparation for the twins' birthday party. Their birthday is on Christmas Eve, and I guess there was some sort of disagreement. And Sadie had swung a broom at my brother, and then tripped over some Christmas decorations, and then called the cops on him. And my dad watched her swing the broom, and it was kind of a problem, because they arrested my brother when she went after him physically, and he was really frustrated about that situation. But they never charged him with anything. But they separated him, and they said, "Well, just don't go back." And then he had the ability to not spend Christmas or the boy's birthday with them because of it, and it was
How long was
not
he
good.
locked up?
Well, it basically told him not to go back, that
Okay.
day effectively. So he wasn't allowed to go to the celebration, on for the twins, or for Christmas proper. And it just he just said, "Look, I'm gonna give her some space," and that space was like 3 weeks before they had texted, again after that fight. That was I think late January or something like that, before they started texting again.
Does the police report reflect that she was the aggressor in the situation?
I haven't been able to get the police report, so I would love to see it. But my dad was there, and he witnessed her swing the broom at him. He said once he witnessed her swing, but I don't know. I'd have to get his consent, I believe, to the forms that they've presented, to get the police report from their records keeper. That was the form that I saw when we were looking for it. Maybe that was Mequon. I don't recall. I'd have to look again.
Okay, so now that was, I think you've mentioned two incidents where she called the police on him. Is
Yeah,
there
that's what
more?
I told you, that this was a situation where she was trying to weaponize the police. She was calling the
Hmm.
cops on him. Even if he didn't do anything, even if she aggressed at him, it was a situation where she was building a paper trail, and that was something that was presented in the courtroom. What she said to Rosalio in text messages was that I am building a case. I am recording things, right? So she did have that as motive, and it was very very clear. She admitted it in that text message to Rosalio, that she was trying to establish a paper trail to take my brother to family court. It was very clear.
Okay, so Rosalio Gutierrez Jr. When did he enter the picture, and when did you learn of him yourself specifically?
Uh, the first I had heard about Mr. Gutierrez was I think one comment from my brother. I think that was May. I think it was May by the time that occurred. Maybe it was late April. But one comment, and he had just said that the guy had some kind of history with drugs, and that it was unfortunate that Sadie didn't have better judgment bringing someone with that kind of history. There was like a domestic violence charge, and some history with drugs, and that Sadie he was just disappointed that she didn't have better judgment in whom she was bringing into the children's lives. I mean, just so we have the proper tone, it wasn't, he wasn't feverish about it. It was just like like that's really, really unfortunate that she's dating this guy of all people, that seems to not have a good criminal history.
Right now, I'm going to ask because it could lead into the question. I mean, if the guy has a pretty bad record, and those are your children, um, I don't want to imagine he was too cavalier with it either. If he's concerned, now could some of the quote stalking have come out of that, a real concern about who's around his
Absolutely.
children?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the only reason why he would have looked up Gutierrez at all, to look up who he is and whom Sadie is bringing around the children. You know, his primary concern was trying to protect the children. There was a family situation that had disseminated immediately following my niece's birthday that meant that the two of them were spending almost every day together. But the reality was that it only occurred because nobody was around my niece enough to make sure that she was using her devices appropriately, to put proper parental guidelines and restrictions on the smart devices and things like that. So she was using social media in ways that a child doesn't completely comprehend, that she thought she knew what she was getting out of it, but the reality was that she wasn't using it, and wasn't restricted the way a child really needs to be protected from the potential evils that exist in our world. From that issue, there was good reason for my brother to be even more concerned with the kids' safety, more concerned with what was happening in the household. And after that, I believe was when he had told her specifically that he was going to go to court, for custody of the kids, because it just wasn't, the living situation that they had didn't appear to be the best for the kids, and he wanted to have some of that time to get them out of that environment, to have them, in his home.
Okay, so now, back to the stalking claims. Was he checking in many times, and it could be seen as excessively from her end? What led to it? I've already covered the GPS tracker. That's done. What led into it? Because again, every headline, everything I see, stock, 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 and now I hear that where there could be a reason for it, but what exactly was going on here? Was
She
he
claims that he was harassing her nonstop and all this stuff. They tried to present this situation in the courtroom where she went to Mexico for like a week or 10 days in early March, and during that time, her friend Rebecca was watching the children, but she never told my brother about it. He had no idea that she was going to Mexico. And if you're familiar, the right of first refusal really should go to the father of the children for taking care of the children if she's out of the country, for a lot of reasons. And in this situation, is like I said, this is a buildup of again her trying to manipulate my brother into doing something. This is a situation where he showed up when he found out that she was in Mexico, showed up at the house, to figure out what was going on, and to get his children up, to get them ready for school. They said that it was at some ungodly early hour, but he was trying to make them like pancakes and all kinds of stuff for breakfast and start their day out, in a way that was positive and productive, and to do something, in a good way for the children. He was not aggressive in that situation. He even smiled and said good morning to Rebecca, whom he didn't have a great relationship with. So that was testified to in the courtroom. And then Rebecca escalated with Sadie to call the police that my brother was in the home. But my brother had been doing his laundry in Sadie's house the whole time. So how is this a situation? They tried to spin it in a way that made it sound like my brother just broke into her home to then take care of the kids, but he had never really not been welcome in the home, because he was welcome there to spend time with the children, and to like do his laundry and things like that. Even if he and Sadie weren't actually together, he was still welcome there for the sake of their kids. So this is just a complete fabrication, a misrepresentation of the reality of it. And they tried to skirt around the idea that he was allowed in the house, saying that, well, Sadie had testified that he was not allowed in the house. No, not at all. But then there's text messages that she had sent him, like, why didn't you spend the night? And asked him, or said goodnight to him, said good night, Z Bear XOXO. And this is all during the time period that they claimed that he was stalking her, he was harassing her. They never presented any evidence during the trial. They had all of her phone records, all of his phone records. They had no evidence of her saying, "We're not together. Don't contact me unless it's for the kids. Please don't contact me in these circumstances." That was never actually said. They never presented it. It's really, really important that not only we recognize that there's this massive miscommunication and a misrepresentation of fact by Ms. Beecham, but the reality is that then she leads him on. She still tells him that she loves him. She still sends him XOXO with his pet name. She still invites him over for Panda Express, and then she's communicating with Mr. Gutierrez and says, if you, am I allowed to swear on this? Are you okay with that?
sure? Go ahead.
It's a quote. If you fuck with me, I'll fuck with you back. Like that. That's not someone that's terrified or under severe emotional distress. I believe that all of those things pieced together very strongly argue against stalking. Could you argue that he harassed her? Sure, absolutely. But they had her on the stand. She testified to this like fuzzy blue window, this bluish window that could have been any window, of it being absolutely her window in this video recording of him walking around at night. And she said, "Well, that's my window." And How do you know that that's your window? It's one bluish hued window in the middle of the night. It could have been any number of windows. You don't know that that was her window. So
What
there's
was he recording? What was he recording?
just walking with I believe the recording on the phone, and I don't
What?
know if that was. I mean, I can theorize that maybe it was just in case someone walked out and confronted him, that it was for his own preservation. So he had the any argument or anything that ensued recorded. I have no idea, but
So it probably was her window then. I mean, if he
maybe
was recording to prevent it, I'm just saying that would.
and so did he go over there? Okay, so let's just start with the basis that he went over there one night. Did he take pictures of her doing anything? No, there's no evidence of that. Did he harass her? Did he confront her? No, there's no evidence of that. They claim that he went through Mr. Gutierrez's vehicle. Do they have evidence of that? No, they never presented that he had gone through it, other than my niece's testimony that he went into the guy's glove box. But then they later present that there's a Google search for looking up how to the owner of a Colorado license plate. Well, if he went and looked at the title, the registration, or whatever it was, the registration and the insurance, then why did he have to Google the like how to find the owner of a Colorado plate?
Did the Google search occur before or
After.
after?
So Gutierrez drove a truck with a Colorado plate. It was owned by Eugene and Celia Patterson. That's Rosalio's parents. In with that, they had given him a letter which outlined that he was allowed to drive this vehicle even out of state, et cetera, signed by them. It was one of the pieces of evidence that they presented in the courtroom. So there's a logical disconnect, right? In looking at what transpired. So he went over to the house. Fine. He went over to the house in the early morning hours of the 25th. Was it responsible? No. Was it the right decision to make? No. But does that mean that what he did was stalking? No, it doesn't. So because stalking, there's an element of control and the intent to elicit a physical contact, right? So the Wisconsin state statute defines it as two acts that create severe emotional distress, fear of imminent death, or an overwhelming sense of fear or dread. Were any of those fulfilled with that act? No, none of those were fulfilled with that act. Confusion, maybe. With the doorbell being rung, did he ring the doorbell? I have no idea. That could have been another lie told. That's really hard to differentiate. I'm not sure. So the claiming that the doorbell was rung after they had testified to the fact that my brother had told my niece to cover her nose and mouth so she didn't fog up the glass. Well, if you're going through that level of deceptive behavior, that level of planning where you're trying to make sure that nobody notices the fog on the glass, why would you ring the doorbell and drive away? That doesn't make sense. Logically does not make sense why you would do both of those things in the same trip.
And this is April 24th, 25th time
It
frame?
was late April 24th to early morning on like early morning. So like 11 midnight, whatever time on the 24th into the 25th. And part of it was that my niece was upset with my brother because he was dating another person, so she was really mad at him. So it was a little girl trying to figure out why her parents aren't together. This is someone that is hurt and trying to emotionally deal with the situation. Like I said, harassment, you could argue harassment, but that's not what the charge was. The charge was stalking. So one of the other things that they argued was the phone under the car seat. But why would you have texted the person that you planted the phone on, asking them if they had seen
What was the specific argument they made about the phone?
They said that they alleged that my brother had specifically planted this smartphone, a Motorola G6, underneath one of the twins' booster seats in the back of Sadie's vehicle. That he had done that very specifically in the back of the vehicle. But with the family situation that had occurred, my niece had gone out of her way to start taking like old cell phones. Had done that with my younger sister. Had taken one of her cell phones, and so there was some issues. This was again related to the issues that had occurred where it was not very well monitored. Some online activity that she was doing.
Whose phone was it?
The G6 was my brother's phone.
Okay, his primary phone?
No, well, I mean, he had two phones. He had the smartphone and then the flip phone.
Why did he have the two phones? One
Because
for work, one for.
I mean, sort of, yeah. He likes to use his flip phone, but flip phones don't have like GPS and a lot of other things. So he got a smartphone so he could have that. But he also, understanding telephone technology, understands that these devices can listen to anything that's occurring or transpiring, and those logs are kept. Like that these things are listening to everything that are happening in our home. So my brother didn't like smartphones. He really didn't like them. So he specifically sequestered them. He didn't want them around. He was very anti-smartphone.
Without getting into details, obviously, privacy concerns or whatever, was your niece, I guess the term would be, grounded from using her phone
Yes.
at the time, or had her phone taken
Yes.
away from her?
Yeah.
And are you saying, and again, I'm not saying it's a definitive claim, is it your opinion that she could have got his phone in order to
Gain
resume
access.
whatever activity she is doing online,
100%.
and then maybe threw it under the back seat if she was almost caught
Yep.
with the phone? Fair enough. But now this is leading us up to Rosalio apparently disappeared May 17th.
The phone plant had happened. I used that, the plant, right? Had happened a little over a week before Rosalio had disappeared, and then the weekend before, Zach had the kids. So on the weekend of the disappearance, so Zach had the three kids, and he got them, I want to say, on Saturday, because on Friday night he had a bonfire with Andrew, who testified, and then my cousin Alex was there at the bonfire, I believe.
And that was the 16th.
That was
in the night before.
15th. The 15th.
Friday night.
Friday night, the 15th. So there was a bonfire on a good bonfire on Friday night, the 15th, and then on Saturday morning he drove my friend Andrew home. And that was, well, they questioned Andrew about that trip home because Andrew had slept at my brother's house that night. They had a few drinks and he crashed in one of the kids' beds. And then the following morning, Zach drove him home. And then Zach got the kids that day, spent the day with them. And then the following Sunday with them, he went out to the Christmas tree farm where the kids spent a bunch of time with my sister. And my brother was helping my eldest brother plant some trees and do stuff like that. And my dad was there. So how Sadie had gone over to Rosalio's on Saturday the 16th and was there until what she had testified to almost midnight. So she was there. It was the first time she had met Rosalio's children, and it was maybe the fifth, sixth time that she had met Rosalio in person, starting from when they had first started talking on February the 13th of that year. So between February 13th and May 16th, they had kids, they're busy people, COVID hit, there was some issues in making time to actually spend time in person together. She went to Mexico for 10 days. They had just gotten to know each other. They had met once in person in February. So that's what she had stated. And she had met him once in person in the beginning of March. So that was the second time she had met him in person. And then after that, she went to Mexico for a week or 10 days or whatever it was, and then got back. So out of
How
that
did she
time
meet him?
period, Facebook dating.
Okay.
So found him on Facebook dating. So on February the 13th, they made a connection. They started messaging, and from there, they had spoken very regularly.
Did he live with his children?
No, no. His children live primarily with their mothers because each of them is from a different baby mama. But in that situation, she was there until almost midnight, give or take, and then Michael Campbell came over a little after midnight, and he was there for several hours in the middle of the night. So whatever had transpired, Michael was there after Sadie had left, to my understanding.
Who's Michael?
Michael Campbell is one of Rosalio's good friends. So I believe that on the night of the 17th. So you have a guy.
So now, Mike Campbell, I just want to clarify. Showed up after midnight?
After midnight, yeah.
Okay.
On the early morning, on a Saturday, 2:30.
Okay, so could it be that, like, coming home from the bar, just coming by?
Yeah, it could have been that. I'm not sure what time exactly he got there, but he was there, pretty late, and he stayed for a couple hours and talked or something like that, according to phone GPS data. I believe that's what they had shown. So Michael Campbell was there at some point in the early morning hours of the 17th. So that's after Sadie left. On the 16th, Campbell shows up and they spent some time together. Now, Sadie says that she hung out with the kids. At some point, the kids went to bed. They chatted for a little bit. He had made nachos, something like that, and they had spent some time together. And she was just overwhelmed with joy that she had the opportunity to meet his children. She had texted him at some point during the day on the 17th and said something along the lines of, "I think I want you to be my person for a while," which is, if you're unfamiliar, I believe I was told that it was a Grey's Anatomy reference to being exclusive, something like that. Like wanting to date him, right? So she conveyed that she wanted to lock it down, be a little more to lock down an exclusive relationship. To which he hearted, he liked it, not the thumbs up, but the heart. He hearted the message and then carried on with his day. It's not like he confirmed that or anything like that, And I describe it as I think, what was the term? It's called dry texting.
Hmm.
where it's like a super non-committal thing. It's effectively a fist bump.
Was that the
Uh,
last communication between the two?
No, the last communication was that he was going to Mike's for a while, and
Okay.
that he wouldn't be available. But that was in the evening of the 17th, in which the reality was he had invited this woman, Nettie, over. So um, that was the girl that was in the wrong location, where Nettie was coming over, and Narita Macias is her name if you're looking her up in the witness list. Narita Macias was coming over. She had texted at like, I think it was about 8:25 that she was on her way, and then she said 5 minutes away at like 9:30 or something like that. She lived about 40 minutes away, so she says she's on her way, shows up like 45 minutes late, and then he doesn't respond. But up to that point, they had exchanged some texts about what she liked to drink, and things like that. And she had testified to the fact that she was going over there just to talk or get to know him. She wasn't going into his home. They were going to like drive around or walk around or whatever it was that night.
So
That
she never saw him then.
she never saw him. That's what she testified to, at least. So, because the cop said, well, she was believable, so they didn't bother looking into her as a potential suspect, even though she
Hmm.
was specifically the person that was supposed to be at the crime scene, according to her text messages and her interactions with him, that was supposed to be there during the alleged time of his disappearance. They never bothered investigating her. They never bothered even trying to figure out if she was in the crime scene at all, to figure out if she was lying, because they just said she seems believable. Well, then she met with the attorney, the district attorney Michael Gravely, right before the trial, the mistrial in 2022, and then changed her testimony, because he then went with her to the crime scene, and she drove and parked in the wrong place. And then he said, well, she was outside the wrong building. She couldn't have possibly have seen whether or not someone was going in and out or anything that might have transpired that night. Um,
Hmm.
which is sort of an odd thing that you would bring her back, 2 years
Hmm.
later, just shy of 2 years later, to try and clarify her testimony. This is sort of an odd consistency that the ADA, the
Hmm.
DA, and then the lead detective meet with people, and then suddenly we have a prison snitch, testimony that's never recorded, that they just write down what he says. They never put it on body camera. They never actually videotape it at all, which is suspicious in nature, that these same people are meeting with these people, and suddenly their testimonies change.
Did they have any other suspects that were ever named?
From what I understand, they did look at Michael Campbell, but I don't know if the police did a really deep dive into him. They couldn't bring Michael Campbell in as a Denny, a Denny motion, which I'm not sure why he would do that, because there
What
was
is that?
a
I'm
Denny
not
motion
aware.
is specifically a Wisconsin law that's based on, I think, 1984, the state of Wisconsin versus Denny, that establishes a potential other actor in a crime like this, where you have to specifically outline someone's motive, opportunity, and means to commit the crime. And so they presented those three things for Michael Campbell. There was motive potentially. I believe that there was money that was owed between the two of them.
Okay. Now, when did you first learn of the disappearance?
I heard that my brother was arrested the night that he was arrested, so on the 19th. So I was in contact with my brother and my dad about that, but I was in a meeting at the time, so I couldn't do anything about it. I was meeting a potential client and discussing a project, but I followed up afterwards, and nobody was answering their phone. So I got wind of what was potentially happening. I think from Josh that night when he was released from the police station after questioning.
Okay, so at that point, he was just being questioned as a potential witness / suspect, but not
So
arrested.
they arrested him. They arrested him for
Okay.
stalking that night.
Oh, for
That's how they got the
stalking.
search warrant. Yeah.
Okay.
So on the day of the 19th. Now I just skipped over a bunch of stuff in the
Mhm.
time, like in this timeline, because there's some issues with some of the witness testimony of what happened. This is a bunch of information that came in. Neighbors that heard some thumping around 10 p.m. On the night of the 17th in the living room area. That was the neighbor that lived above Gutierrez. So you have a neighbor that testifies to have heard a thumping noise at around 10 p.m. About five thumps, loud thumps. Sounded like something being banged against the wall in the apartment, or in the living room area of the apartment on the night of the 17th. You also have one of the neighbors that heard arguing between a man and a woman in Gutierrez's apartment on the night of the or on the afternoon or around 1 p.m. or something like that on the 18th.
Hmm.
Now that testimony was also changed 2 years later. So then there's a stipulation read in the courtroom that said, "Oh well, I must have been thinking about the 17th."
Hmm.
You also have an anonymous tip that stated that there was a brown-haired woman on Gutierrez's patio at 4:16 p.m. on the afternoon of the 18th. Uh, so you have some witness testimony that claims that there was something happening in the apartment on the 18th. Both this argument between a man and woman and a woman standing on the patio. Then after that, now speaks to the potential of someone being there on the 18th. What we saw and what was tested, I believe, by the attorneys was that the diffuser on one of the tables near the door was still going during the crime scene photographs on the 19th at like 1 p.m. Now that
What's a
implies that
diffuser? I'm sorry.
a diffuser is like a aromatherapy where you put like essential
Okay.
oils and water in it, and then it
Right.
steams into the room
Okay.
and creates moisture if you get bloody noses, and
Mhm.
and then like aromatherapy with like lavender and things like that to help you relax, or it's like burning incense, but
Mhm.
not burning. So because the prosecutor alleges that the murder had taken place at about 10 p.m. the night of the 17th, and this
Mhm.
diffuser is still going strong at noon, maybe 1 p.m. on the early afternoon of the 19th. Now that's almost 40 hours later.
Mhm.
So this diffuser is still going that following day, and it's very very possible that this diffuser was loaded to and set up to cover the smell of the blood or whatever else had happened in that apartment
Mhm.
on the 18th.
Where was your
So
brother on the 18th?
my brother was working. He went to do
Mhm.
his taxes, and then he spent the rest of the evening with his girlfriend Christine.
So the
Because
time is very important here.
I should get into the other part of the timeline from the 17th as well,
Mhm.
because the state had presented that my brother had taken a nap, right? But the state alleged that he didn't take a nap, and that he had taken the time to drive to Kenosha to then wait outside Rosalio's apartment until he got home, and then to ambush him at the door and to beat him to death with a blunt force trauma, and to finish him off with some sharp implement, right? Like he was Inspector Gadget pulling out a different device, and so that's what they alleged happened at about 10 p.m. Right, to follow the timeline established with that time window. The problem is that Kenosha is over an hour away from my brother's home. My brother was at home at 11:19 p.m. texting and calling Christine, his girlfriend, at 11:19 p.m. That they said that they could not find any video surveillance footage of him, and this is why they said that it was so carefully planned out, is because it was executed in such a timely manner, and that he was able to avoid all these cameras because they never found any evidence. So they tried to
Could you do
explain.
that?
No, not no. There's like I think one of our group members counted traffic cams on the freeway between Mequon and Kenosha, and they had counted somewhere around 30 traffic cameras between
Are there
those two
alternate
locations.
routes?
There are alternate routes, but you would have had to take an hour and a half, hour and 45,
Mhm.
way longer to get around. And still, even to get close to that time frame, you'd have to drive through a different freeway interchange with more traffic cameras. There's no way for you to make this timeline work to drive from Kenosha to Mequon to make this timeline that they presented without being seen on traffic cameras.
Could he use another vehicle?
No, they alleged that he had the minivan because the carpet was missing.
Okay. And what about his phone? Was his phone pinging a tower anywhere near there around that time?
Nope, his phone stayed in Mequon. The state said that he had already memorized the path down there, and he left his phone at home on purpose.
How about everybody else? You've brought the name up of Mike Campbell multiple times.
Mhm.
Do you know where he was that evening?
Well, Erica Saylor testified that he was at home in bed. As
Okay.
it turns out, Erica Saylor is a brunette woman.
Hmm. I've come to a conclusion. Would you be up for coming back and answering questions that can come in from a live chat, which
Yeah,
may be critical, but I'm very interested in what's going on here. It sounds like Mike Campbell, you feel, should be investigated more. I'm not going to state anything beyond that point, but there
yeah.
are questions between different timelines and things like that that I really want to put it out to everyone here. Please comment below your thoughts about the different timelines. I'm sure that you're deeply knowledgeable of the trial and things like that, more so than I am. And I'd love to have you back again. And let's just, I guess, take incoming and see what happens, because I think people probably will want to challenge you. I think your story is very compelling, however, and I definitely want to hear more.
Yeah, I'm absolutely willing to.
I need to give credit to Eric as well. I'll put his stuff in the description box. So thanks, Eric, for that. I think Solomon's fantastic again. JR, ACW, I was on the side of the defense. I'm always on the side of the defense. My motto comes from Nicole Muller, and that is fuck the state. So that's where I stand. Fuck the state. It's all about defense. Um, I love the fact Joe Steeler left us on a cliffhanger. I love it because that means there's more coming. Um, so the motto again: innocent unless proven guilty. That's appropriate because of what we all support, Zachariah. Right, we've got this now. I need to get this bloody thing up now. Viva Las Vegas. We got Viva coming up now. Guys, I also thank you everybody that's popped in or staying and chatting. Love you all for doing that. Obviously I see some of the names here from chat. C Swept. I mean, genuinely, C Swept, Kim, Lou, they all came from the group and they've sort of stayed with me. I don't know why you stayed, guys, but I'm really grateful that you watch streams with us. Shelley, I need a new stream, Shelley, that we're gonna watch after this Parkland shooting. So any suggestions, guys, for a live stream? I don't know what's coming up. Where the hell did I put that? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Right. As you can see, I'm not very organized. Right. Because you're cool. Thank you, C Swept. I hope other people give me a chance, give the channel a chance. If you like C Swept, if you like Kim, if you like Lou and all those guys, you'd love my channel. Because they stay around like a bad smell. Stay around all the time. Yeah, so Josie said fifth. Oh, do you know what? Right, right. Only a small, only a small rant, okay? But you Americans, I can understand Josie, right? I can't. What you posted, Josie. I'm not picking on you. I'm not picking on you. You know, just let you know. You give an example there. Why the fuck do Americans put months ahead of dates? I have no. Luckily, if that was 6th to the 12th, I'd have been like 6th of December. But Solomon's interview with Eric is on the 15th of June. As I say, I'm not picking on you, Josie, but fuck me, does it confuse me? And it only confuses me when it's like, as I say, 1/3. What's that? Is that 1st of March? Is that the 3rd of January? I no, it's Josie, sorry. I only bring that up as a bit of fun. It's just I really confused. That didn't confuse me because the 6/15, well, obviously it's 12 months, so that was fine, but normally I get really confused. That's the way it should be. Fuck off. I don't mind it being that way if it was the same in every country. We would say June the 15th. Yeah, that's fair. Look, I'm Welsh. What the fuck do I know? Right. Just remember there's a poll there as well if you want us to do the Zachariah Anderson trial. Most Sundays or when there's dead days, I can stream it. I think it's 89% say yes, 11% say no, and that's fine. That's good. Um, is it really 15th day of June? Is it? You guys know too much. Raise up, and again, thank you to Kayla for donating her prize. So we've got 2 T-shirts today. Make sure you put the symbols in the chat. Also, shout out. Um, have I got it here? Hang on, hang on. Everyone, take a look as well. I think this will work. That's the new store that they launched today. I'm not sure who launched it. Apologies, I don't know everybody yet, but take a look. Some really nice gear there as well. I'm certainly going to be buying more stuff. That is for sure. And I love the really small gang concept because that's why I always say about my stream. You missed my chat, Dylan. Where is it? Where's your chat? I didn't see it. Lefty, lefty, lefty. Lefty v Lady Law, the water settle score. That's a stream. Happy days. Happy days, Lefty. I did miss it. This is zooming past, and I'm trying to find the stream as well. Lefty, lefty. What's that? The more he throws the F bomb around, I'm sold on the accent. Thank you, Jamie. I've got a potty mouth. I've got a potty mouth. I must admit. I am never going to get monetized on this channel because I swear like anything. But also the chat swears. Everyone swears. I normally got 2 mods, right? That I hear that authorize all. Like literally, their full-time job is authorizing chats, the swear words. Um, because I don't even know how to do it. They do it all the time. They constantly just accept, 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 accept. Especially lefties, like fuck this, fuck that, blah blah. So we will never change. I know that I'm gonna be unmonetized, as in they will never pay me for this channel. But it's whatever. You gotta be natural, don't you? Right, let's present this one now. The accent, the accent brought the girls to the yard. Yes, I normally get my titties out. I get my man boobs out. Uh, I normally shake my booties about like, my man boobs sometimes. Um, happy days. You all like to swear happy days, because if you didn't, you won't like this channel. Right. Let's have a look here now then. No worries, Kim. No worries, Kim. It's been a lot. Hey, Kim, it's been a long day and it's been a shit day. So I appreciate you. Right. Come back in a bit. Right. So for those that don't know, my mic didn't work. Well, it did work, but I had to whisper because my mic was so loud. So it's only now I got it fixed after this stream. So it's a disaster of a stream today. Right. Let me. Oh no, wrong one. Right. Present. Kim, you'll be back. I know you're going to come back, so it's fine. Um, just before I. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's funny, but it's still a pain in the ass for me having to do it. Just a quick plug, guys. Remember, I just put the link in the in. Oh shit! Hang on, let me put it in the other one now. If you haven't seen it, if you don't know about it, the link is in the chat. This is new store. This is some of the new gear. So please go and support. Um, obviously the Welsh Trial Whisperer. Fucking hell, I've been called worse. Uh, oh, JR, you're more than welcome anytime in my. You can cuss as much as you want, but just quickly, please go and support this. As I say, thanks to Kayla, we've now got 2 t-shirts, $36. I'll send it tonight if you've got PayPal. Take a look at the site, a few new designs in there. Again, apologies, I don't know who made this. So apologies to that person, but I love the gear. Please go and buy it. Or I think everyone here is in the group. Free Zachariah Anderson. Right, let's play this then. Let's play this. I'll play it at 1.25 speed. And so this is my fault for everybody. I confused everybody today. And Sea Swept wasn't there at the time. So essentially what happened was, let me just present it. Fucking hell. Stop talking and just get the thing up. Um, here. Here. Is that it?
Some
Right, I got that. So, um, oh, Jen made it. Zach's sister-in-law. Oh, shout out to Jen. And sorry, I just don't know everybody yet, so so apologies for that. So thank you, Jen. 100% your fault. Are we allowed? Yeah, absolutely. Look, the only thing you're not allowed to say in my chat is any racist stuff. Do you know what I mean? Anything like that. Also, fuck off, Lefty, right? No, no arguments. I've lost followers because of arguments with Biden and Trump. I don't do politics. I don't understand it. I don't want to know about it. Um, where do you, well, hopefully, guys, don't poach him now. I need some followers. So, please come and watch my stream. So before we start it, my apologies. I know it says Viva Frei today. So the whole cock up was I played this for like a minute. I was like, well, what the fuck am I watching Recovery Addict for? I might as well just watch his channel if I'm going to do that. So I got confused then, and then Shelley put me, C swept, sorry, put me right at the end. So that's why we're watching it. Um, I'm not. I'll be honest. I don't mind Recovery Addict. I don't really watch him, but he supports a lot of people that do not like me. So I don't support him. That's why I refuse to play it. But apparently, it's only 2 minutes. Oh, happy days! All right. Oh, happy days. Not just me then. Oh, he supports some people I hate, and I've had arguments. They've all blocked me on Twitter, so I refuse to support him because of it. Fuck them. So yeah, it's fine though. It's fine. We sorted it. You're not gonna have it off. Like I've got no issues with him as a man, but the person, the people he supports, the people he puts on his stream, I hate them. Fuck them. I hate them. So right, I'll play this and we can have a chat in chat. Um, Also, like I do generally hope that I know you've all got your own streams that you go to, but please give us a chance sometime. Watch some streams with us. I think you know. C-Swept, Kim, Lou, all them will say that we're a fun channel. So not as good as some of them, obviously, but we're getting there. Right.
But he had mentioned the lips, in the courtroom in the chat that I saw earlier. It's a very important thing because a lot of people were convinced that he was trying to stifle my niece's testimony, but that's not the truth. What I was sitting in the courtroom at the time, and my niece kept mouthing to him. She kept trying to speak to him directly, like just mouthing words, not vocalizing. So in between questions, during those silences, she's trying to speak to him. When she walked up and sat down, the first thing she did was try to communicate to him directly at the defendant's table. And through that, my brother had nudged and tried to get his attorneys to say something about it, to make it stop during the testimony.
I'm going to explain all this.
Nobody was saying anything to her about it. It was a problem. As it turns out, then he was doing a dad reaction and said, please stop mouthing at me, still your lips, just stop doing that. He didn't try to interfere with the testimony. Clearly, she was able to say whatever she wanted on the stand. That's not how this worked at all.
So for anybody who doesn't know or what we're talking about right now, what the context to that is, we're going to get into it in the context of this stream. For those who do, I'm just going to show you the picture because it's an amazing thing where you read something in the news, and then if you decide to try to dig in a little bit, when you don't find answers immediately, or even after digging in a lot, well, then you have a lot more questions. This is the image, the infamous image of Zachariah Anderson at the trial, allegedly intimidating one of the witnesses during his murder trial, the witness being his 14-year-old daughter at the time 14-year-old daughter. This picture, close your lips when you're testifying, was suggested by everybody. Everywhere that I saw was suggested as being the defendant in real time intimidating his daughter into shutting up during the testimony that they said incriminated her father. And by all accounts, it did because he got convicted. I tried to find what testimony was being spoken at the time of that image because I couldn't find the timestamp in any of the live broadcasts. Couldn't find it in any of the news. And I was like, well, Jesus, was she saying something like really damning? Or is there another explanation to this that might not be what the headline news is running post-conviction in order to justify this conviction and make this guy look like the monster that many people believe he is? So that's it. That was the context. We're going to get into it. And that's his brother, Solomon Anderson, on an interview with a recovering addict, did a podcast with him. we're going to get into this entire trial. Zachariah Anderson, convicted of murdering, I'm going to forget all the names in this, and it's not to be disrespectful, it's because there's too many names. And I was on a panel about a week and a half ago, and this subject came up, and I was like, oh, I read about it very briefly. It's like, oh, okay. Not that I believe everything I read in the news anymore. It's quite the opposite, but had no knowledge to formulate an opinion. The panel, which consisted of 9 other attorneys, said this was the most egregious trial, the most egregious miscarriage of justice. Guilt or innocence aside, because he might still be guilty, as a process, this was the most egregious miscarriage of justice imaginable in terms of what evidence was allowed in, what evidence was not allowed in, what witness tampering might have actually occurred, beginning to end. This is a murder trial in Kenosha. The judge of this trial is the judge from the Rittenhouse trial. And if you don't know the story, we're going to get Zachariah Anderson's brother to talk about it. Before we do that, let me just make sure that we are, in fact, running properly. Everywhere.
Lefty's taking the piss.
Okay.
I'll put it back to normal speed. Right, no, it's back to normal speed. I had it on 1.25. Right, I'll fucking put it back to 1.25.
So we're on Rumble, which is good. Hit the plus button on Rumble, share the link around. We'll make the landing page so people can hear about this. Are we simultaneously on Locals? We are on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Okay, Solomon, I'm going to bring you in about 30 seconds. Standard disclaimers: no medical advice, no legal advice, no election fortification advice. Super chats, YouTube takes 30%. If you want to support the channel, you can do it on Rumble. They have Rumble rants. Rumble is not taking any of this of that amount for the rest of the year. They typically take 20%. Best way to support the channel, if you like what we do here, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Become an annual subscriber, and you can see the behind-the-scenes documentary, history of Chattanooga through the eyes of Robert Barnes as he relives his childhood. Okay, let's do this. Solomon, I'm bringing you in 3, 2, 1. Sir, how goes the battle?
It's more of a marathon than a foot race, so it's going well enough.
Do I want to do wide angle? I'll do wide angle. I think it frames better.
Yeah, that's good.
I was going to say I can't. Now we're going to get into the hand gesture, what it means before people start hypothesizing as to satanic worshiping. Solomon, let's okay. Everyone knows the backdrop. Your brother was just convicted of murder in a trial where people who paid close attention to it and legal minds took serious issue with a number of things. There's a GoFundMe to help him raise funds for his appeal. I've already shared that link around last week. We're going to share it around again. Before we even get into all of this, so who are you? Where are you from? And what was family life like as children? I mean, what's your relationship like with your brother? How many siblings and the whole family situation, which some people might not know?
Well, my name's Solomon. I'm Zach's younger brother by 4 years, just about. And total, there were 9 siblings. Most of them are half siblings to us. The eldest 4 were from our original 2 parents, and they separated and had more children afterwards. So 9 total children. My next elder brother passed away in 1982. He was about 9 months old, give or take, with an accident in the bathtub. So I wasn't even around yet at that time. My parents split up actually while my mother was pregnant with me. I believe that it was kind of like a last-ditch effort to salvage their marriage after my brother's passing. And so with that, we ended up being placed primarily with my mother until 1989. My father had remarried, and my mother decided to leave us and move to Texas. She kicked us out, told us to get off her lawn, actually, and walk down the road. So my elder 2 brothers and I were very, very close. We were very much raised in a situation where we bonded together and took care of each other to a great degree. That's Josh, Zach, and myself. The other siblings came for the most part later, and my next younger sister moved to Texas with my mother, but the rest of us went with my dad. My dad got divorced in, I think, 1991, and then we were raised by a single father for quite a few years. So during those years, as a single dad with 3 boys, he did the best he could, but there's only so much that you can do. You still have to be working. You still have to be able to maintain the home, and it's a hard stretch. So my brothers and I were very, very close. We fought like cats and dogs. We bickered through most of our childhood, and like brothers do, we came out the other side still closer than other siblings, might be in different circumstance. So Zach and Josh have always been, kind of my caretaker, even from those early years. Um, with that being said, that's, kind of the role that Zach took as I grew up. He made sure that I got my license. He spent the hours on the road driving with me. He got me my first job outside of agriculture, and he drove me to work and home regardless of the weather. He bailed me out of bad situations where I had um, I had a girlfriend who's an alcoholic, and she was abusive, and he got me a job and showed up with a U-Haul truck and moved me. He was always my parachute when I needed it. He was always there for me, and that's a big part of why I continue to fight.
How old are you, and how old is Zach?
So I'm currently 39, and he turns 43 in July.
Okay, and I had another question. It's going to be a silly question. I presume there was a religious element in your family. Zachariah, Solomon, Joshua.
Yeah. My
I don't know much about the Bible, but I know that.
yeah, you didn't even hear our middle names. It's Joshua, Daniel, Zachariah, Joseph, Aaron, Elijah, Solomon, Moses. Right. So it's very heavy. She started with the Old Testament. My mother was raised very Catholic, very much so Catholic. My grandmother was a staunch Roman Catholic, and so she started with the Old Testament, and for the most part, we're named in some sort of religious nod or some respect to the Bible and that piece of our family history.
All right, now what we're going to do before we get into the actual trial stuff, we're going to move. It doesn't change anything for us. I'm going to end this on YouTube, and we're going to be exclusive on Rumble and locals. So everybody on YouTube, head on over to Rumble. The link is in the pinned comment in the chat, and I'll post the entire interview later to YouTube. So I'm just going to end it on YouTube now. Okay, so where do we start? Let's start from the beginning of context leading up to the events, the trial, the conviction. Your brother did not get married to the girlfriend from which they have now the daughter that testified at court. What was that relationship like?
Well, they have 3 children total, and they were never married. They started out very well. I think that they started out in a very good way. Then Olivia came along. Oh man, my niece came along, and it was a good relationship. He fell in love with her quick and fast, and they were there for each other. There was a point where they started to run into some problems. My brother is stubborn, very stubborn, and Sadie was she wanted to be able to control and push him in different directions. There were a lot of arguments that they had over years, and the text messages that we received were that my brother was out of control. Those were her words. But my brother always bristled at someone trying to tell him what to do or how to live his life or anything like that. It was never a good situation. So you just kind of let him figure it out on his own for the most part, which doesn't mean that they had a very healthy relationship. I can't say, and that's unfortunate for them. They're 2 consenting adults in a relationship, and there was a point where both my brother Josh and I were very much hands off. I think she had made a comment to the media that we refused to help, but there was no help to give. They were together for at that point over 10 years, and there was no reason why we should come in and tell my brother to whatever, try and hear her out or whatever it is. They had to figure out how to communicate between each other. So they had some rocky points in their relationship where they would take a break. He bought his home and moved out, and they didn't live together starting in 2011. They were still together, but they didn't live together starting in 2011. So that was an important point in their relationship that helped them actually live a healthier relationship. My brother's just a little particular. He's very sensitive to noise and stuff like that, and he can be a challenge to live with just as a partner. So that doesn't make you a bad person, but it was good for them to do that. And so over the years, they had sort of this. They described it as an on again, on and off, but they like took repeated little breaks, or they would get in an argument or whatever, and then a week or two later they would start talking again, and they would work it out. And that was the nature of their relationship, sort of non-traditional. But they still loved each other nonetheless, and they were still kind of drawn to each other like magnets. So, from what our perspective was on their relationship, it was up to them to figure out. Just like it's their children. They have 3 children together to raise as they see fit. And there's not a lot that we're going to do or say to get into the middle of that. That's up to them to figure out. So this situation where she claims that they were broken up, but he said that they were on a break, that was not abnormal for them. That was nothing new.
All right. And did they have did they date other people in this on and off time where they were living apart but on and off together?
There were other people. Yeah, I can't say specifically if there was anyone that that I can point the finger at that Sadie had invited into their life, but there were other people that came and went. But no matter what, Zach seemed to just keep a special place in his heart for Sadie, and they continue to persevere.
So now this culminates, but begins with, tell us what happens of the event, and then what happens of the investigation, and then what happens of the trial. We'll get to that in a bit, but the event itself, like, how does that event unfold?
Well, from my brother's perspective, he had his children that weekend. He was very tired. He took a nap, and he woke up, talked to his girlfriend for a little bit, searched some stuff on the internet, took another nap, got up, went to the store, bought some stuff, and went to work, went to go file his taxes, and carried on with his life, then made up for the date that he had overslept the night before by spending that Monday evening, the Monday the 18th of May of 2020, with a woman that he was dating at the time. On the 19th, he carried on his life like normal, and then 2 men show up at his home, and they ask for him by name. One is fidgeting with his waistband. They're trying to look into his windows. He's put off by it. He asks what they're doing on his property, and they ask for him by name. He said, "Well, I'm his brother. He's not here right now." And of course lies and deflects the situation to try and get them to leave, because it was not a good situation. They're trespassing, and they seemed like they were there to do him harm. So they leave. He calls my brother and my dad. One of them tells him that he needs to call the police. My brother leaves the Christmas tree farm to drive down to be there for him in case these men come back as a witness. My brother Zach calls the police, dials 911. The police show up, and they arrest him. They take him to the Mequon Police Department. My eldest brother arrives. They flag him over to the Mequon Police Department. They hold both of them in interrogation rooms for some time before questioning them. I believe they started questioning Zach at like 11:30 or almost midnight at that point, after he had been up all day when he was already very tired. And they held my brother Josh until I think they questioned him until after midnight. So they had held them both. They didn't really tell them why they had arrested or detained them at the time, and then started questioning him about the situation. So from his perspective, he had no idea. He called for help because 2 suspicious men trespassed on his property that appeared to mean him harm, and then he called for help, and the police show up and arrest him.
The two men who showed up were undercover or were police?
They were neither. They were Michael Campbell and Brandon Hendrickson. Both of them were witnesses that testified on the stand during the trial. So there were 2 civilians that were in contact with the police that then interfered with the police investigation by going to confront my brother, because my brother was pointed out as a suspect. And then they saw no charges and no response by the Kenosha PD for doing that. And moreover, Michael Gravely had described Michael Campbell as a hero in the Denny motion that was filed in the court for interfering with the police investigation, for going to confront my brother in this situation, which is still illegal. I don't understand why this is done.
Oh, so hold on, we got you have the curse of the knowledge, which you're going to know more than a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I didn't follow the trial in real time. I did as much catching up as I could afterwards to come to my own, quasi-educated opinion. The two individuals who come, this is after the murder had, although they've never found a body, and we'll get to that.
Never found a body, never proved
This
that
is
it was a murder.
and it occurred on what? It was the evening of May 17th or May 18th.
So the state alleges that it occurred on the evening of May 17th of 2020. So that's a Sunday night. The prosecutor claimed that this occurred at about 10 p.m. When the murder occurred, and that Mr. Gutierrez was never heard from again. At that point, his phone was put in the freezer at 10 p.m. And then there was an orientation change end at like 10:45, 10:44, or something like that. And then Gutierrez's phone is silent and not touched until it was discovered in the freezer at I think the 21st or 24th of May, which is well after my brother was arrested by Gutierrez's mother when she was cleaning out the apartment.
Okay. And now, do you know how they're able to pinpoint the time that the phone goes into the freezer?
Only because it was discovered in the freezer, and they saw that the orientation change happened at 10:10. When they downloaded the information off of the cell phone, it tracks all of the orientation changes, text messages, and other events that the phone experiences.
Orientation, as in the phone's location or the angle of the phone?
Angle of the phone, landscape to portrait.
Okay. Orientation change, 10:10, the evening of the 17th of May, 2020. This is like right after COVID hits, which is going to be relevant, I think, in a second.
Yeah.
So 3 days go by, 2 or 3 days.
2 days, yeah.
The individuals who come to see your brother, they know what happened. Whether or not your brother does depends on, who you believe in this, but they presumably are there because they know something happened and they've come to contact or to interrogate your brother. Known to the police? Did the police know that they were doing that?
No. So the police did not know. At least that's what they had claimed, that Detective Correa told Michael Campbell to not do anything. That's what Correa said. So Correa testified in the courtroom that he told Michael Campbell to not do anything. Michael Campbell then did his own sleuthing or whatever it was that he claims that they did, and then went to confront my brother, drove over an hour just to show up at my brother's house. Now, I had heard that he was waved through a police line because they were setting up the search on my brother's property, and that the local police had set up cars and waved him through to the property to then let him confront my brother, thinking that he was a member of the Kenosha police undercover that was going through to set up this search.
And just so people are also totally clear, Gutierrez, the victim in this, was dating your brother's ex-girlfriend, or was dating Sadie, I think is your brother's.
That's correct.
Girlfriend.
Yeah,
at the time.
he was dating Sadie and a couple of other women at the same time.
How long had he been dating Sadie for at the time of the event?
He had started speaking with Sadie on February the 13th of 2020. So at that time,
3 months.
It was 3 months. They had met in person maybe a half a dozen times most.
Okay, that's very interesting. If we're piecing this all together, the media was describing Zachariah as an obsessed ex-boyfriend. This was not to qualify it or anything, but not a serious relationship in that they had only met each other, from what you're saying, a half dozen times or so.
Give or take, yeah, because there was issues with both of them having children, them not being comfortable bringing each other around each other's children at that time. And so there was some scheduling issues. COVID hit. There was a bunch of other problems that sort of ran this into a compact set of issues that they only testified that they really had only met like in person. I think it was about a half dozen times.
Well, what I say is interesting about this, and now I'm learning a few things as the details are filled in, but this, when it comes to the stalking charges that your brother was also convicted on, and him asking his daughter, your niece, to put a camera in a vent to, spy and stalk. Look, if one wants to find a non-criminal explanation for that, it might be that there's a man who's not well known now, in the proximity of his ex-girlfriend and potentially children. I don't know what that is there, but so that's interesting, and that this was not a long-term established relationship that was going places, potentially leading to whatever. This was a new and very young relationship, if it could even be called that.
Right. Yeah. And that was it was how it originally was presented, was that Sadie and Gutierrez were in this incredible once in a lifetime relationship. It was sort of how it was described in the press, and how it was presented is that she had said, "I think I want you to be my person for a while," in a text message to Gutierrez, but it was presented in the court that all he did was like send a heart emoji. He didn't reciprocate. He was just like, it's the equivalent of a fist bump.
Mhm.
Like, yep, thanks for sharing. Or I like that you shared that with me, sort of a statement, and which was odd to us as a family seeing that for the first time, because if she felt a special connection to him, I'm not disparaging their emotions. Hopefully, that she was going to find some sort of connection with someone, because it seemed like it was inevitable that her relationship with my brother was coming to an end after a dozen years, and it was unfortunate, but it was a necessary thing. They had a family court date set already. They were going to court to argue for custodial placement of the children. My brother was gathering information to be able to take it to family court to then get as much time as he could with the kids. There was a family issue, that started right around my niece's birthday, that they spent almost every day together. So there were some issues with Sadie's testimony, and the fact that she said that he was not welcome in her home, and that he that she was afraid of him. Well, that's not the case. They spent almost every single day together from roughly the end of April through the beginning of May. And that's just the reality of the situation that we as a family got to see, and we were frustrated to see that it was misrepresented to such a gross degree. My brother did his laundry at Sadie's house during this break that they had. Like, he would take his laundry over there and do it. He was welcome in the home. It was not uncommon for him to be over there to pick up the kids. This was a complete misrepresentation of the reality of their relationship. And I can't say that they had a healthy exchange the entire time during those couple of months. It was clear that they had arguments over the phone. As one of the detectives or one of the police officers testified to, most of the recordings that my brother had on his computer were the arguments between a man and a woman, primarily about the children, right? And this was an important thing to note when discussing these stalking charges that they claim, that my brother was invited over to the house. She asked him why he didn't spend the night one night. She invited him over for Panda Express. She texted him, "Good night, XOXO, Z
Let,
Bear."
let me ask.
This does make sense.
Well, let me ask the obvious question that I think some people might be asking: the stalking conviction, was it on Sadie or was it on Gutierrez?
Both.
Okay. And I should also we'll lay out some facts right away for everybody who's watching that might not be familiar with this. There's no body, there's no murder weapon, there's no definitive type of murder weapon. They said at one point blunt force, like a baseball bat, then changed that to a sharp object. No body, no video recording. The event occurs on May 17th. So what you're saying is they met maybe a half dozen times. This was not a long-term relationship. It wasn't like, if you're trying to explain the obsessed ex-boyfriend flipping out, maybe that narrative doesn't have all the pieces to that puzzle that you'd need. Some people are asking, do I understand that he was recording Gutierrez with Sadie with his phone?
That never happened.
What was I might be getting ahead of the chronology here, but his daughter, your niece, testified that Zachariah had asked her to go record or put a camera in events to record. It was either Sadie or the two of them together.
So there were some issues with that testimony. The living room is on the opposite side of the house from where she claimed the car was parked. So it was on literally the opposite side of the house. You'd have to have X-ray vision to see him walk up to the air conditioning unit and to place the phone in the vents, the little fans on the side of the air conditioning unit, to try and listen through that thin veil, right, through the AC unit's expansion on either side, to what was being said inside of the home. So I'm not sure exactly what she was talking about. It wouldn't be possible to have seen that situation. So there's issues with the factual basis of this testimony.
Okay.
Moreover, the video footage that they played was the sounds of footsteps in the night through the dark, and then what appeared to be some sort of blue lit window. And then Sadie said, "That's my window." But there's no definitive proof that that was her window. It was a window in the night. And there's no footage of her and Gutierrez. There's no footage of him peeping in. None of that exists. It's not there.
Okay, I mean, it's incredible juxtaposition from what is reported versus what what might have been evidence in reality. Okay, May 17th, the event occurs. They know that the phone was last moved to 1010. It's in a freezer. Your brother is only confronted for the first time 2 days later by the
That's
two
correct.
individuals who, how are they related to Gutierrez?
Michael Campbell and Brandon Hendricks are both friends of Rosalia Gutierrez.
So they had known what had happened, and they had been in touch with the police, and they come, notwithstanding apparent police orders to talk to Zachariah. Your brother says, does he know who they are?
No idea who they are.
So he sees two people that he does not know who they are, and then he calls the police.
That's correct.
There's evidence that he calls the police.
Yes, there's a 911 call.
What did he say during that 911 call?
We don't have the recording, and we need his consent to get it from the Mequon PD. But to my understanding, he reported that there were two men that showed up at his house, questioning him about a missing person, and they were threatening him, and he was seeking some sort of protection or some intervention because he didn't know what was going on.
And when you say you don't have that, your brother has that. The defense has that recording, correct?
I would assume that it would be part of the discovery, but
Okay.
they never played it during the trial, and I'm only paraphrasing what I was told was said.
Okay, that's interesting. I'd be curious to know why they didn't play it, if what was said on it would have been exculpatory, but also if he had done what he's convicted of having done, would he be calling the cops first thing?
Right.
Which we know that he did, but we don't know what he said during that call definitively. So then he gets taken into custody. He and your older brother are, what do they call it? Not deposed, but they're interrogated. For how long?
6 hours von Zach.
Wow.
And 6 or 7 hours Zach was in Mequon PD, and Josh was there for almost 5, give or take.
And when do they tell them ultimately why they're there, or what?
Zach had no idea that he was a serious interest in this missing person and potential homicide until he was transported to Kenosha, when they had actually presented him paperwork that said that they were investigating for first-degree intentional homicide. So he had no idea that this guy had gone missing and that they thought that he had been murdered. He had absolutely no idea. Like, it was a man that my brother had never met, and he had only looked him up, on the internet. Had never met him in person, nothing like that. Had seen him, to his statement that he had gone to Sadie's home in the early morning hours of the 25th. I'd seen him once, and that was it.
Before we get into the arrest, and then and I'm going to ask some questions about what you know of the investigation leading up to the arrest. If I may ask the indiscreet question, your brother had, for anybody who wants to, go by character assassination or character judgment, your brother had a criminal record for nonviolent drug possession. What was his criminal record about?
Yeah, he was pulled over in South Dakota transporting 20 pounds of marijuana. I don't remember the exact poundage, but of criminal possession of 10 or more pounds of marijuana that he was driving back to I don't know, Illinois or Michigan, wherever it was. I don't really know where he was taking it back to, but he was transporting it from the West Coast over to one of the Midwest states that he had a connection to.
How long ago was that?
That was November of 2019. He was pulled over.
Relatively recently.
Yeah, so that was during that time period. Otherwise, he had no criminal record from when he was about 18 years old until he was pulled over in South Dakota. He was totally free.
What came of that arrest? Did he stand trial for that yet, or what happened with that?
He actually he pled. So he just pled guilty to the charge, and he paid his fine, and they gave him a sentence for it.
Okay. He went to jail for that?
He was already in jail. The court proceedings ended up finishing after he was already arrested for the stalking charge.
Okay. I think I understand that. All right. No violent charges or no violent convictions in his past for whatever that's worth.
No.
And now during the trial, I know that drug production or growing drugs came up. Was he was also growing marijuana on the property, on his property at this time?
That's what they had presented in the courtroom. Now, my brother had started an LLC specifically to set up a CBD company. He was interested in setting up a CBD company, so I'm not sure exactly, what he was doing behind the scenes to do that, but he had already established an LLC to handle that, and he was setting up, and he had a connection, I think, in Michigan, that he was working out how to set that up and how to grow legal. So I'm not sure exactly what he was doing, but they claimed that he had 72 plants in his hand or in his home, according to my niece's testimony and what Michael Gravely said they found in the trash bags next to the garage.
All right, now let me ask you, the properties and where he lives and what these things look like is somewhat relevant. Where is your brother living? Where are you living? And what do these properties look like in terms of size, what's on them, where they're located?
So my brother lived on about 4.8 acres in the city of Mequon. It was a slightly rural area. He had one neighbor to the west through a pretty thick tree line / forest, and then he had one neighbor across the street. Otherwise, he was surrounded by wilderness, and it was very peaceful, zen, very quiet place on a reasonably busy road, but it was only 2 lanes wide, so quiet enough, just down the road from the local technical college. I at the time lived about 10 minutes, 11 minutes north of him in the city of Cedarburg, which is just a historic town in southeast Wisconsin that my family had settled. So I lived there, and I operated my construction remodeling business out of basically his house. So there was a dumpster on the property, a bunch of construction equipment and materials stored in the old workshop that was on his property, and things like that.
Okay, I hope that this is a big preamble, because now we're getting into the investigation, ultimate charges, and then what some consider to be a miscarriage of justice of a trial. Do you know? I mean, we know now because it was evidence at the trial, but how does the investigation into this missing person go? And when is your brother formally charged?
So it started when Sadie drove to Kenosha, found the crime scene, and called 911. So Zach Sachs goes to do what she said was a wellness check. She shows up and sees that the patio door is open. Then goes to check the front door.
May I
Sees
stop you
that
there just for one second?
Yeah,
Actually, she does a wellness check on Gutierrez at his apartment.
at his apartment. So she drives from her home, leaving their daughter home because it was during COVID, and I believe that school was out and it was a virtual. So she leaves the daughter, goes to do this wellness check, drives all the way to Kenosha. So that's over an hour. She drives one direction just to check on him because he hasn't answered the phone in about 30 hours. Or maybe 36 hours at that point. So she drives to Kenosha, parks, sees that both of his vehicles are there, sees that the patio door is open, hollers in through the patio door, gets no response, goes through the main entry because it's not secured, walks up to his door, sees what looks like drops on the door frame, goes back around to open the slider. She says that she parts the blinds and peeks in. She sees blood. She panics. She calls the police. The police respond, and she tells them that she knows that Zachariah Anderson has something to do with this.
Right, I have to stop there. I try not to interrupt it because It's a really good interview, by the way. I'm enjoying this. So I don't interrupt good interviews, but I got questions. He might cover it, but I think chat will know quicker. Right. So Farrell, you just said it here. If everyone in your life is that worried about you after one day, they have a reason to worry, and it's not over some booty call sex. Right. Why the hell did she leave her daughter, who at the time, what would she have been, like 12, 13, at home over an hour away to go and see somebody that like hasn't answered his phone for 30 hours? That's not that's not really. I don't know many people that do that anyway. Also, was she investigated in terms of, and I asked this question based on um not Zachariah, Alex Murdoch trial, right? Was she investigated in terms of her what time did she leave the house? Like, did they track her car and stuff? There was no investigation for her. Like, they didn't track and see, right, let's see what time she left the house, what time she arrived, like where, not what do you call it, tracking on her phone and stuff like that to see, because that would be accurate then, right? Where was she at certain times? So they didn't do any of that. Didn't ask her any questions. And she says, "Oh, Zachariah's got something to do with this." Like, oh, okay. Thanks for doing an investigation for us. What the? So literally no investigation of this woman. Zach was going for custody. She had a habit leaving her in the same. So I haven't got kids, but I got 4 nieces. There's no way I would leave my niece. I got a 12-year-old niece. I'd never ever leave my niece there. Hi, Kitty. Nice to see you. I think it's the first time you popped up. So, and also I lose my train of thought. I'm sorry if I'm blabbing, but you over an hour away, your daughter, who 12, but still young, 12's okay, but you don't leave them. Like, it's different to go down the shop or go to the store 2 minutes down the road or 5 minutes down the road, say, I'll be back in five, than what it is to go and drive over an hour, probably thinking with a vagina, thinking, I want to get some dick today, some booty call. So she's gone over probably just to get some dick. So that I'm not suggesting that she was doing that because, you know, at the end of the day, what's saying that she didn't fucking kill him then? Anyway, I've got so many thoughts on it. Sorry. I'm gonna Hi Kitty. I'm blabbing now, and this is the way I do. I just think out loud. Sorry, we go back to it. It's a good interview.
So that's what she tells the police. She just unequivocally, she knows it was him, for whatever reason, because at that point she had been spinning up a narrative with her best friend Rebecca Jekyll that Zach was stalking her because she felt like he was following her around and doing things.
All right. Police then get involved, and I guess you only learn after the fact. What do they do? I mean, what does the investigation look like, or what evidence of the investigation was presented at trial?
So what occurs is then Sadie goes and picks up my niece, brings my niece into the police station. So drives all the way back to her home up in like Germantown, Menominee Falls, picks her up, and then drives all the way back to have a second witness give some sort of testimony to verify any piece of her story about my brother being a stalker. And then the police contact the DA. They write a warrant and then go to arrest my brother. So that's the timeline that they have. They have effectively hearsay. They have word of mouth from Sadie, and they take that and they run with it. They execute the search warrant on my brother's home. They find that there's a section of carpet missing in the back of his van. They search and they pull a bunch of implements. They search the house. They find some cash. They find what they presented as the marijuana that they had showed in the during the trial, and then the mushrooms, and otherwise nothing else. They bring dogs on to search the property. They have drone footage that they bring around. They search the area around my brother's property that is mostly forested and like fallow grassland, and they find nothing. They find the dog marked on the fire pit and on, I believe, an old chainsaw that was in a shed, an outbuilding. Otherwise, there's nothing that they find. And they take a bunch of things and they as evidence, which end up testing completely empty or completely void of any DNA evidence except for my brother's minivan, which they took to the state crime lab, where they found one pinhead-sized speck of what they claimed was splash DNA on the rear inside panel on the passenger side, right by the back lift gate. They found no other evidence of there being anything on it, and I'm not even sure that the experts swabbed like the handle of the liftgate or any fingerprints on the liftgate for any of Gutierrez's DNA, because if he had dumped the body in the back of the van, he would have then handled the back hatch and done things like that. They claimed that when he set the body down, that a splash of DNA got on that side panel. Now there's reddish brown substance, this similar substance, a similar appearing substance. It looks similar to blood on the opposite rear panel, like over the back wheel well, on the floorboard right next to the driver's side sliding door, on the visor on the driver's seat, and I believe on the steering wheel as well. None of those locations tested positive for blood, not a single one. They didn't find any evidence of DNA. There was just missing carpet. When they luminoled the back of it, there was no evidence of blood. There was no evidence of a bleach cleanup of blood. Nothing like that ever lit up with luminol.
We're gonna have to break down a lot of that here, because we're gonna get to the carpet. We're gonna get to that spec, which I'll ask in advance just before we forget later on, but I won't forget. It tested positive for DNA, not blood, of an unspecified male, correct?
Lisa Treffinger, I just clipped this earlier today. Lisa Treffinger said that it was a single source male DNA, and she claimed that it tested positive for Rosalio Gutierrez. Those were her words. She didn't say, to what degree of certainty. None of the other information came out. She just said that it tested positive for Rosalio Gutierrez, and they moved on. That was an interesting statement. They then tried to quantify that they could not differentiate between blood or any other type of evidence because the specimen was so small that they could not verify the source or the type of source that the DNA evidence was. They went on to have other experts come on and also say that it was too small to say definitively, scientifically, that it was blood. It was very important, though they tried to draw a logical conclusion. And what they said was that the quality of the DNA evidence was indicative of blood. That was what somebody else said, but they could not say definitively or scientifically that it was indeed blood. It's a very important distinction because the prosecutor claims that it is blood repeatedly. They had a third person from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab also say that there was no evidence of blood in my brother's van. Those are very important statements that have been made by two other crime lab witnesses. So,
help me understand this, Solomon. How small is this speck?
So think of the tip of a Sharpie.
Yeah.
Right. If you were to look at the photograph, there are still frames. If you find the photograph, there's an arrow on a little post-it note, and the line on that is the tip of a Sharpie of the arrow. Okay. The size of the speck is smaller than the tip of the Sharpie. It is the size of the head of a pin.
Okay, this I'm not trying to be skeptical for the sake of being skeptical. I am just asking myself the question: How did they find that speck? This was in the back of the car.
That's correct.
How do you find a needle, the head of a needle in the back of a van?
One of the crime lab analysts is a very good eye. She spotted this speck, and she said she called to their testimony. She called Lisa Treffinger in to also look at it. And then they tried to obtain the specimen and then run testing on it. But as they said, the specimen was so small that they could not differentiate what type it was without destroying it. So they had to choose whether to test it for the DNA evidence or to test what type of evidence it was.
And the DNA evidence, they said an unspecified male, but This woman, the name you just said is who again?
Lisa Treffinger.
And she is an expert.
She is the spokesperson from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab that
Okay.
was held as an expert for the state.
They said it was the DNA of an unspecified male that they believed to be Gutierrez.
Yes.
And why did they believe it to be Gutierrez?
She just said that it tested positive for Rosalia Gutierrez.
Okay, so that at least clarifies one ambiguity. Some people were saying it didn't. There was no mention that it tested positive for Gutierrez DNA. They were saying it was just an unspecified male. They couldn't say which. So she says unspecified male, but Gutierrez. Why then would they say it was an unspecified male if they could specify them?
It's the verbiage is single source male. So it's from one male source, and it had tested positive for Gutierrez. To what degree? I have no idea. It was never presented.
Okay.
I don't know if it was like a 15% or a 20% match, or if it was anything else. They also, to my understanding, didn't like videotape the testing, so we have no idea if it was contaminated. We also have police officers that were on the scene that were previously on the crime scene in Kenosha that drove all the way up and processed and looked at the van. So there's possibility of cross contamination, and we also have the possibility that it's epithelial touch DNA that has been spread secondhand from Sadie herself, whom was at Rosalia Gutierrez's apartment on the night of the 16th, and then was dropping off the children, whom were in the van on the 16th and the 17th. During that time period. So we have more than one potential issue with that DNA evidence being there. It could absolutely be a touch DNA that was just coincidentally also on this speck of reddish substance, which matched the other reddish substance in the back of the van. These are all realistic possibilities, real things that can happen with DNA. And I don't think that DNA evidence was really described in how touch DNA can be spread and really the testing of it. And I don't think the district attorney did it properly in presenting the DNA evidence. He almost pseudo inserted himself as an expert by asking her different types of DNA evidence, like he knew all of the types of DNA evidence. It was sort of an odd presentation.
Again, I'm going to preface this question by saying that when there's a wrongful conviction, it's not just that there's a wrongful conviction of an innocent person. It necessarily means that the guilty party is still out there and will get away with the crime. And so there is a double aspect. To the extent there's family, there's even more than a double victim to a wrongful conviction.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, just the crime scene was described as very violent, different types of blood, like splatter and
splatter, drip, spray.
So very violent, like something out of Dexter. And I'm not saying that to be glib. It's like different types of the way blood comes out. Like if you've been hit, spit, air, breathe. A violent scene to the extent that a cleanup would be presumably equally messy, if not messier, but at the very least messy. And if one is thinking cynically or skeptically or critically, it would be even weirder that would be the only speck that one would find in the back of the pickup minivan crime scene. It would be weirder that would be the only speck that you find, as opposed to that being part of many. And now just thinking also critically, conceivable that a speck dries up and is carried over from the investigative of the crime scene to other places. Not implausible, and that's not just to try to think of something far-fetched to achieve a foregone conclusion of innocence for Zachariah. But back this up before we even get to the carpet, the speck, and we'll come back to it. The chainsaw. What relevance is the chainsaw in all of this?
None.
Okay, is there a suggestion that the chainsaw was used to dismember a corpse for the purpose of concealing?
The only thing that they said was that with a canine unit had pointed on a chainsaw that was in my brother's shed. That my brother had gone to the tree farm, and this was part of my niece's testimony. Had given or swapped a chainsaw, had loaded a chainsaw in the back of the van and driven back. This was the only relevance that they had, was to try and bolster my niece's credibility and the fact that this chainsaw seemed suspicious, but they never proved. There was no DNA test that came back to have any human DNA at all on the chainsaw. None.
I would say this,
irrelevant to this case.
I say irrelevant, or maybe exculpatory, in the sense that if the suggestion is that this was used to dismember and dispose of, I don't think you can ever clean a chainsaw without
No.
having traces detectable any more than you can clean the back of a minivan. Did your brother own firearms?
No. No, he was not allowed to own firearms.
I see, because of the felony. I mean,
Yeah,
I presume it was a felony drug charge.
well, there was the felony drug charge. There was also a conviction from when he was 18 that prevented him from owning firearms. So he, for his whole life, had not owned a firearm. Period. I lived with him for a short time, like I had said. I owned a shotgun used for hunting. It was it's a slug rifle, or a slug gun, not a rifle, but a slug gun used for hunting deer if you're going to do a deer drive or something like that. And he saw it in the house. And he was very angry at me because there was no firearm ever allowed on his property whatsoever. He did not want firearms on his property. It was just not something that he was comfortable with, and he was very comfortable with not owning a gun. So that was just a non-starter, which is why this is again getting ahead of ourselves, but why the I was threatened by that gun comment was so completely just imaginary. It was just not realistic. It would not have happened.
You'll remember to come back to that. So the chainsaw, no DNA, so there's not a question it wasn't used. It was just
Yep. It was just
a scary tool.
Yeah, a canine unit had barked at it, and then they took it for evidence, tested it, came back negative. It also barked at the fire pit, where they found that he had burned his own clothes, but there was more than one pair of jeans, as there were 2 buttons that they had discovered, and then some socks and some underwear that they found. But my brother was cleaning out his house, and
Well, hold on,
he was
actually,
prepping for custody of his children. So I'm
and
not
stop
shocked
you
that he
there.
burned stuff.
Well, but before you get there, even the burn pit. This is now we know it's a 4.1 acre property, so there are
4.8.
4.8. So you make outdoor fire pits. Was it a fresh fire pit burn, or was it an existing fire pit that had newly burned clothes? I mean, is the idea, or even the admission from your brother's perspective, that I burnt the clothes contemporaneously with these events, and I did it for a totally innocuous reason?
Yeah, he burned all kinds of things for an innocuous reason. There was the fire pit was an existing fire pit, to answer your question. The fire pit had been his fire pit for many, many, many years. It's where we burned, where he had felt, he had dropped a couple of trees. We were burning logs. We were burning just wood that we had pulled out of demolitions. So like old 2x4s that were rotten and all kinds of stuff. We'd throw it in the fire. We'd burn it. It was a convenient way to get rid of a bunch of stuff that would otherwise just fill the dumpster unnecessarily. So the other thing was that my grandmother had just passed away, and all of the belongings that were in her home were emptied out and were taken to my brother's house, and he was going through and disposing of things that had no significant value, and a lot of those things ended up getting burned. So there were personal effects and things like that were burned, as opposed to filling the dumpster, which was full of construction debris.
And so that's now I'm going to steal man, just so no one thinks that I'm just here to listen to a brother who's emotionally invested, try to defend his brother. Someone's going to say, okay, well, there's always a good answer for why he was burning stuff, or there was always a good answer to why he was buying stuff at a store that the day of, or the day after, I should say, burning the clothes. The question is, as a matter of fact, did they find anything in the burn pit that could definitively, or was suspected to have predated the incident?
They did not find anything in the burn pit that was definitively connected to the incident.
Okay, did they find older stuff? Like, there's been stuff that was in that
there was
burn
like springs and all kinds of stuff. There was all kinds of old metal that they pulled out of there. There's because I think there's chairs and mattresses and stuff like that, like an old country burn pit that you take the stuff out that you don't want, that'll light on fire, and you burn it. And that's not a shock. I personally had watched it happen many times over, and raked out the pit.
Is your brother's testimony, though, as far as this is concerned, that I burnt some clothes the day after the incident?
To be clear, my brother didn't testify to anything.
That's right.
So
that was not the way I wanted to say that. Was the evidence to suggest that the burn was contemporaneous? Like, this was a fresh burn?
That's what they claimed. They claimed that he had intentionally burned this and that it was freshly done. But my brother had a good-sized fire on the Friday before. They claimed that it had rained very hard for days. I actually went back and looked at the weather report, and there was less than an inch of rain over all of those days. It was overcast. It was misty, but it didn't rain as hard as they claimed it did in Mequon. So the fact that they claimed that there was this smoldering pit, well, you can burn on an overcast or misty day. That's not a big deal. And there was debris and wood and all kinds of stuff to get rid of. So am I shocked that he had burned? No. Was it on fire when they got there? Well, no, they said that it was smoldering. And to my understanding was that there were hot coals that they found inside the fire pit. Not that this was a raging fire when they showed up. It was that there was some smoldering ashes inside the fire pit. And if you've ever had a country fire and you've burned big logs, it gets a skin of ash over the top, but the core of it is still warm unless you get a torrential downpour. So the fact that they had to call the fire department out to hose down the fire pit didn't shock me because he has good sized fires when he has a fire.
So their evidence as to the clothing having been burnt freshly in the pit was 2 buttons from what they determined were jeans.
2 buttons from what they determined were Levi's. There was an elastic band from some underpants and a partially burned sock. And I don't understand why, if the state presumes that he's destroying evidence, why would he not have soaked it in all of it in an accelerant and made sure that it all burned properly? That doesn't make sense.
Did you say there was a remnant of a sock?
Yeah, remnants of a sock.
So there was still some unburnt portion of the cloth sock left. Was there blood on that unburnt portion?
Nothing. So they didn't have any DNA evidence that connected my brother to Gutierrez. They even pumped his septic tank. They actually secured
hold on. Before you get to that, sorry, because this is fascinating. But let me finish on this. So they determined there were clothes burnt. There was still cloth left over from what they determined or know was a sock, but no blood on the sock that was partially burnt because presumably he's concealing evidence. No blood on that. And part 2 to that, the only DNA evidence connecting Gutierrez to your brother was that pinhead speck in the back of his truck. We're going to get to the carpet in a bit.
That's correct. It's the minivan.
Yes. I thought I was just cracking the case, because if there's a sock that he's burning, presumably it's because it's evidence, and presumably it's going to have blood on it. And if he didn't burn the entire sock, well, presumably they should be able to find some blood on the sock that he's burning because it's evidence. But no,
they found a sock and they were like, aha, and then they shipped it to the crime lab and it came back completely negative. No DNA evidence.
Okay. Chainsaw, irrelevant. Growing marijuana, allegedly, does not make one a murderer. And now, okay, let's do the septic before we do anything else, because I saw this in the interview with recovery addict. And I thought this was interesting. Most people might not know this. If he's washing his hands off, if he's taking a shower, if he successfully cleaned the entire back of that truck, but one little speck got through, well, you got to wash off. So if you wash off of the shower, the sink, whatever, stuff can get stuck in the drain, the little U-bends where things don't always go down. What do they do to search the property?
Well, they actually take the traps from underneath the sink in the tub, and they keep the contents. So they keep the traps from the sink in the tub, and they pump the septic tank. So if he were to shower and he had blood on him, then some would be left inside the trap, that U-bend that you talked about, in the sink or the tub, and or in the septic tank itself, the whole tank. Because
this is a country property where you got a septic tank and it's not connected. I don't know.
It's not connected to city water. That's correct. So there's a septic holding tank out in the yard. They bring a truck. They pump the whole tank. They take this evidence, they test it, looking for Gutierrez's DNA, and it came back completely negative. So there's no other evidence, none. They searched our family Christmas tree farm 3 times. They found no evidence. They claimed that they found a shred of this mystery flannel that my niece claimed that he was wearing on that Sunday. There's no evidence of that flannel being burned. They said that they had found in some of the press a shard of this flannel in one of the fire pits, I believe at the tree farm. It was not ever presented, not even once. It was not brought up during the trial. It was not cited. They claimed in news articles that they found pieces of Gutierrez's clothing in my brother's fire pit. This is the mainstream media releasing this stuff. There was no evidence ever presented of Gutierrez's clothes in my brother's fire pit. It never happened. They also claimed that the speck was definitively blood in the back of my brother's van, that there was blood in the back of the van. There was no evidence ever verified, none, that there was blood in the back of the van. They never presented this stuff. And then the DA, Gravely's office, has a PR person that then spreads lies and misinformation to the mainstream media, that it gets disseminated through the local population and potentially taints jurors into believing that this man is guilty before he sees trial, years before he sees trial. It's a problem.
Well, no, it's a problem because I consider myself to be cynical and reasonably intelligent, and I had heard this stuff. And it's not that I took it for granted. It's that, I was not following this case the way we followed Rittenhouse, so it was not the one that I was dissecting with judicial scrutiny. But I heard it, and I know the way my initial reactions and reflexes go. I thought, first of all, I had no, even after looking into this, that the speck of DNA was the size of a pinhead in the back of a truck that allegedly was the getaway cleanup truck for a very large individual. We're going to get to the size because it's relevant for other stuff, but a massively messy, violent, brutal murder that leaves in the back of a truck a speck the size of a pinhead, and that's it. Okay, so they pump the septic tank. They find no blood, no DNA, nothing else on the property. burnt sock in the fire, no blood on it, let alone incriminating DNA. The van. Let's get this is the one where I get suspicious. There better be a damn good explanation for why between the event the carpet in the back of the van is pulled up and the seat is removed. Explain what happened with the truck, what kind of truck it was, and whether or not what was alleged to have happened in fact is admitted or confirmed to have occurred contemporaneously with the incident.
Well, it was a minivan, so it had 2 rows of seats in the back. My brother would take them out all the time. He would take them out so he could load construction materials or whatever he wanted in the back of the van. The seats just disconnect. He'd take them out. He'd set them right in the driveway so he could put them back in when he finished hauling whatever he was hauling. And if he needed to cover them, they would go in the shop or in the garage, and not a big deal. But you pop the little levers, you take the seats out, you set them aside. So there's a bench seat in the way back. That thing popped right out, no problem. He had the kids on that weekend. The bench seat was installed. The bench seat was there. My niece testified that the carpet was in the back of the van, but he had set the chainsaw in the back of the van. To my understanding, the chainsaw had leaked fuel in the back of the van.
If I may stop you there, your niece testified that the chainsaw was in the back of the van.
That's right.
Okay. And I'm going to ask, it's obviously a gas-powered chainsaw, not one of those crappy electric ones.
Yeah, it's a mixed gas. Yeah, so like a 2-cycle engine. So, so as I understand, there was some fuel spilled in the back of the van, and as opposed to driving around with the smell of fuel in his van, he just removed the carpet. It was already all stained up and messed up from doing the demo that he had done as work for Susan Brown Williamson up in Belgium, where they talked about this, where he was demoing the kitchen, the bathroom, and helping her with some of the house remodel. So he had that Friday. To my witness, I watched him pull in the driveway with the trailer that they had shown in pictures that was Susan Brown Williamson's, loaded with debris, attached to the back of the van, and the van was packed to the ceiling with other construction demo debris that he had then hauled out and thrown in the dumpster. So this stuff was very clear that he had used it for this purpose. The back of the van was filthy, full of dirt and debris. The state alleged that he had cleaned this van, but then they actually show pictures of the van, and it's full of dust, full of debris, full of filth, and it's evident that the van was never scrubbed, ever. It was not cleaned.
I got asked a stupid question. I feel terrible for not knowing it. I was going to ask you in private chat, but I'll just display my own ignorance. You didn't testify?
I did not.
So when you say, just to ask the obvious question, as far as you understand, was there any evidence adduced in defense or perhaps inadvertently in prosecution that the chainsaw leaked gasoline onto the carpet, or is that something totally extraneous to the trial?
Totally extraneous to the trial.
Because it's an interesting explanation. Some people might say, if they want to be cynical, it's an emotionally invested brother trying to protect his brother. Here's an explanation that I think is plausible, but nothing was adduced by way of evidence other than the fact that the chainsaw was in fact in the trunk of the car, as per his daughter, your niece's testimony.
That's correct. Yeah, that was the only thing that was adduced during the time.
Was there
the trial?
Was there any explanation in defense submitted as evidence to the trial, withheld or not, or retained or not by the jury, as to why the carpet was removed?
No, I don't believe they discussed. They just said that it was missing.
Okay, and that was
he was a contractor, and there was Susan Brown Williamson that testified that the carpeting was already removed to her eyewitness testimony on, I believe, the same Friday that I saw him pull in the driveway,
which was before the incident.
That's correct. That was Friday the 15th of May of 2020.
Susan Brown Williamson is a contractor who testified, or not a contractor, rather, she's a client who testified.
That's correct.
So she may have, or did in fact, recollect that the carpet might have actually been removed prior to the incident and not after, as his daughter testified.
That's correct.
All right. And I'll remind everybody who might be tuning in an hour late. No body, no weapon. As of now, no body, no weapon. And we're hearing the evidence or the lack thereof. I guess it's the time now to go into his daughter's testimony, because that was, I think, by the account of the media, the most damning testimony out there. He even had his own daughter testify against him. This is how evil this stalking, jealous, obsessed ex-boyfriend was.
I want to point out how outraged we were as a family that they accused my brother of her testifying. He actually he had his lawyers motion the court to ask that she didn't testify because of how damaging it would be to her. And the fact that people say that it was his fault that she testified is so disingenuous. He didn't ask for her testimony. Sadie put her in this position, and then the court demanded her testimony. So as opposed to letting her do something on video, which I know that the state of Wisconsin has room in their legislature for a minor testimony in something as sensitive as this, as opposed to protecting her psyche, what they did was put her on the stand and put her through this awful scenario, making her testify to her against her father.
Especially, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was nothing exceedingly relevant about her testimony, save and except for that one story where she said, Dad drove me over to Mom's house and asked me to put a phone in a vent to spy on them, and I looked through the window and I saw them lying together on the couch.
It was not exactly that. It was that she stayed in the car, watched him walk up and put the phone in the vent, and then he looked in the window, and that she watched him do this, and then he came back and got her, and then he walked her up to the window and said, "Okay, go ahead and look, but cover your nose and mouth with your shirt," to which she did, and then she looked in the window and saw them, and then they left. But when they pulled out of the driveway, they turned to drive back past the front of the house. They stopped because Gutierrez's truck was in the driveway, and then my niece claimed that he went through Gutierrez's glove box, looked at the registration, took the registration, and this Dear John letter, took a picture of it, took this Dear John letter or whatever it was, and then came back to the car. Oddly enough, they presented later in the court case that he had looked up a way to search a Colorado license plate, a free license plate search.
Mhm.
So again, that doesn't make sense for someone that looked at the title. Why would you need to search the license plate to find out who owns the piece of property if you have evidence of the registration and title in hand? Or I think it was just the registration, not the title. But a letter written from the owner about how Rosalia was granted permission to drive the vehicle, and then the registration of the vehicle.
Now, I'm reluctant to ask this question because I don't want anyone perceiving it as like looking to victim blame. And there's no but to that. I'm going to ask it anyhow. Did Zachariah, or do you know of whether or not anybody involved in this knew of who Gutierrez was? Like, if we're thinking of, you could frame it as an obsessive, jealous ex-boyfriend, or you could frame it as a concerned father who might know something and just wants to do a background check on someone who might be in proximity of his girlfriend and children. Did Zachariah, to your knowledge, know anything of Gutierrez's past, present, and history?
Zach actually said to me on one occasion that he said that he wished he had been a better boyfriend to Sadie, and it was too bad, and that the relationship was too far gone. And then he said that he didn't like that this guy had a history, and he mentioned some sort of drug affiliation. To me, those were his words to me, but really just referenced that he wasn't like this clean guy that she was bringing into their kid's life, and he was really disappointed that she didn't do better for their kids. That's all he ever said to me, and that was never brought into the court. But that was it. It was not obsessive. He didn't have like a feverish look in his eye. He was just like, it's too bad. And this guy, he's just not like this upstanding citizen. He has a history, and I don't really like him being around the kids. But I just wish that she had better judgment.
Well,
that's what he conveyed to me.
And again, not a question of victim blaming. It's on the one hand a question of saying, is there a non-incriminating explanation for why an ex-boyfriend might, even if he did go take a picture of registration, to do a background check unbeknownst to people that he cares about? And flip side, if you're looking for alternative explanations and places to investigate that I'm not sure the Kenosha did, might there be other players who might more plausibly be potentially related to this than your brother? Okay, what am I? So now, say your niece, his daughter testifies. Yeah, okay. The image heard around the world, him holding his lips to tell her to be quiet, and the media ran with this as witness intimidation. And I read the comments to the YouTube videos where people are watching mainstream media report on this. They don't know what the testimony was at the time, and I'm finding out now because there was none. And yet they're saying in the comment section, sick bastard, total witness intimidation. He's evil, yada yada. I saw your explanation as to what he was doing. It makes sense, but explain it to the world, because part of me is like, I just want to know what the testimony was at that time to see whether or not it was incriminating for the dad to be telling his daughter to zip her lips. Your explanation makes a lot of sense. Is there anyone out there to contradict your explanation and give it to us?
I mean, I don't think there is a contradiction. They wanted to try and spin it that it was intimidation, absolute intimidation, but it was just a father trying to father his daughter. At the same time, during the same court proceedings, my niece had a massive emotional outburst, and from the gallery, you had Sadie's family members mouthing and signing to calm down, and in this, it's half a dozen of one, six of the other. Both of them were attempting to try and get this young girl, this girl, to try and recenter herself and to act appropriately for the situation, even though it was such a high stress and high stakes situation for her and for the family. I don't blame her for having a moment where, for the first time in nearly 3 years, she saw her father and wanted to ask him questions, wanted to reach out to him, wanted to communicate with him. Of course she did. That's not evil by any means. There was no intimidation there. People don't understand that there was a no contact for almost 3 years. It was the first time she had seen him. This is a young girl that does love and miss her dad, regardless of the situation. If you listen to her impact statement, she even says it's time for you to work on you, and come talk to me when you're done. That's not like her telling him that he's a monster. That was her saying that, like, that my love is still here for you, and I just need you to earn it. Those are very different to what the state wanted to sell the public as to what the nature of the relationship was. And it's unfortunate that the media took that and ran with it and misrepresented it. Did he do the right thing? No, doing this was not the right thing to do in the moment. And I admonished him about it afterwards. I said, "What are you doing? That was so stupid. You knew all the cameras were on you." He's like, she's my daughter, Saul." I said, I understand. I get it. But the one moment that you needed to just sit stoic and keep it together, and regardless of what she was doing.
No, it really is enraging, because it's not a question of taking sides. Just give me the truth, and I'll come to my own conclusion. And you see the screen grab, the still, and everyone's like, "Oh, look at his evil in his eyes." And I mean, like, I think people project into the eyes what they have already come to by way of conclusion. And I didn't get there. I just show me the facts. And now that I know, just so everybody appreciates, it wasn't him telling her to shut up while she was testifying.
No.
She was mouthing to him while on the set. It's like, I don't know what she was saying, but trying to communicate with him, and he's like, "Stop." And I look at that, and I don't see evil in the eyes, regardless. But maybe I'm just projecting my own stuff onto it.
I mean, if you look into his eyes, he has nothing but love and adoration for almost her entire testimony. She's sitting on the stand, and his eyes are alight and aglow, and he's just happy to see his daughter for the first time in almost 3 years. I mean, it's 33 months at that point. And then there's a moment where Gravely is hammering on calling him the defendant. Oh, I'm calling him the defendant, and she calls him the defendant to appease Gravely. And you could see they showed him, and he goes from loving and proud to injured. He's hurt. It's his daughter calling him the defendant, not dad. That's awful.
And speaking of the absolute utility or lack of the testimony, the bulk of her testimony was that evening, allegedly placing the camera, the chainsaw, that he grew 72 plants of marijuana, but she couldn't identify bud when she saw it. It was, I watched that. I mean, I tried to catch up on it. I was like, I don't understand the utility of this, except for running with the narrative that we got his daughter to testify against him. That's how evil he was, even though she said nothing of use to the actual, I'll say not alleged murder, but the murder until he's found, but the event. Okay, let me think of.
They tried to use her to prove stalking. That was the only utility to it.
Yeah,
the only utility.
Someone had asked, and maybe I forgot to ask the question. You said it as relates to the back of the truck. No smell of bleach, no residue of bleach, because bleach leaves a residue.
Bleach, when you're wiping up DNA evidence, it breaks down like the DNA itself, right? It denatures DNA, so it denatures, which makes it not test well when you try and run it through the PCR testing. However, it still leaves DNA. You can easily Google pictures of what appears to be like a crime scene cleanup, and when it's luminol, you see streaking as the wipes go through. It may have denatured the DNA, so you could not test it to test for a positive DNA match, but it will still light up with luminol testing. So the fact that they tried to present that it was absolutely cleaned up and there was no trace evidence of it at all is unrealistic and misleading.
Well, I'd say unrealistic, especially given what he is alleged to have used to clean it up, which were, unless I'm mistaken, Clorox bleach wipes that he was seen purchasing the day after at it a Walmart?
Walmart. Yeah.
So let's hear this. This is the morning after, allegedly, right? That he's shopping for an hour at a Walmart. What did he get? He got bags, Clorox bleach wipes.
Yeah, sardines. Oh, that was another issue with the mainstream media. The sardines, Q-tips, and some other benign things.
Sardines for what?
Oh, and rubber gloves. Yeah, snack. He eats sardines. You don't have to agree with eating sardines, but he enjoys it.
Well, it depends how they're preserved. But so people thinking, oh, he bought rubber gloves and Clorox bleach. Some people have hypothesized the innocuous interpretation. This is during the height of COVID. Yep. Now, I don't know what evidence was presented to counter that. What type of rubber gloves?
They were just regular rubber gloves. It wasn't like heavy duty. It was just rubber gloves.
Did they ever find them?
They didn't present them, not a single time. So I don't know where the rubber gloves are.
Evidence that a construction worker during COVID bought rubber gloves, sardines, Clorox bleach, the wipes that come in a container. You pull one out at a time.
Yeah, and there were two types of them. There's one with like the purple top, and the other one. And one of the Clorox wipes was in between the driver's seat and the passenger seat from the crime scene photos. So they weren't even all used up. There was one container still sitting in between the two front chairs, the captain's chairs. He had driven after stopping at the Walmart up to Belgium to this job site where he spent about half the day. And if you're unfamiliar with construction, you use bleach very specifically to kill mold spore, but you use trash bags to bag up things like loose insulation. And this house was at an era where vermiculite insulation was used regularly and other things like that. My brother was very particular about fiberglass insulation and wanted it bagged up before it went in the dumpster. He had worked construction when he was younger, had done a bunch of demolition, or a bunch of insulating, had gotten fiberglass in his eyes, and had gotten an infection in his eye from it. So he was very particular. I told you, he was a particular person. He was very particular about how fiberglass was supposed to be handled and bagged. He didn't want it blowing around his property at all, and wanted to make sure that it was secured and not free floating, because he didn't like breathing or having it in his eyes at all.
That's the pink cotton candy type stuff.
Yeah, that stuff. Yeah, and there's vermiculite, which is like a harder ground like pebble.
I have if I have what's the word, a pet peeve, it's my pet peeve is broken glass. Like when someone breaks a glass, it's you got to do multiple levels of not make sure you don't step on a damn shard that goes into your heel and ruins the rest of your week.
Yep.
So that's the damning circumstantial evidence. He bought this stuff the day after the event.
Yeah, but if you watch, it's 32 minutes of footage that they presented during the trial. They claimed originally that he parked so far away. He parked really far away from anyone, like it was clearly avoidant behavior. But then you watch him on the camera, and he parks right next to, adjacent to another vehicle, if not another one in front of him. So he parks right next to other vehicles, and then he casually walks into the Walmart. He casually strolls around and buys the things that he needs, purchases them at the self-checkout, pays cash, again, very casually, and then walks out. I think he like waves thank you to the greeter or whatever when they take the cart from him. He puts his hood up because it's raining that day. It was drizzling or misting or whatever, and then he leaves. It wasn't damning at all.
Well, do we know when the body is alleged to have been removed? Like by the time Sadie gets there, 36 hours later, this would have been in the interim that your brother would have gotten the bags. I mean, is the theory that he already had the body in the back of the car, or that he went back to get it?
That's what the state alleged. Yeah. The state alleged that in 10 minutes, give or take 10, 15 minutes, because to Gravely's closing argument, he said at around 10 p.m., my brother viciously attacked Gutierrez. Okay, so at around 10 p.m., he blitzes him at the door. He bashes his head in. He finishes him with a knife. Then he pulls the body over and he puts him on the carpet and then rolls it all up. But all of that doesn't give enough time, one, for the blood to pool on the couch and on the carpeting on the floor. It doesn't give a realistic amount of time to wrap him up like it's a cigarette, right? Like try and totally wrap the body up into a tube and shoulder him. Lift about 300 pounds onto your shoulder, walk it out to your minivan, set the body down in the minivan, only to get this one splash, and what they presumed was a little bit of mess on the carpeting, and then go in and get the phone and put it in the freezer, and then drive back to Mequon, which if you took the freeway on time, I believe that it was an hour and 7 or hour and 9 minutes. That gave him somewhere between minutes and seconds to make it back to his home in Mequon between 10:10 and the 11:19 p.m. when he texted his girlfriend and called her apologizing for sleeping too long. So it's not physically possible to do this. It's very important that we recognize that it was not possible.
Someone in the chat said, "Get to the prison snitch." Don't worry, we're getting to the prison snitch. But before then, so the theory of the case is that your brother, how tall, how much does your brother weigh?
My brother is 6'1", and at the time he was about 220, maybe.
All right, and Gutierrez is 270 to 300, from what I
he
understood?
was. Yeah, I mean, they tried to say that he was as low as like 240 to, I think Eileen said something around 220, using their imaginations. So Celia Patterson had posted an article in the newspaper.
Who's Celia Patterson?
That's Rosalia Gutierrez's mother.
Okay.
She posted an article right after he had disappeared that said that he weighed 280 pounds and that it was not possible for any less than two people to have committed this act. That was her words on the article that she put out, looking for whomever might have done this.
Did that make its way into evidence in defense?
I
I hope
I
so.
don't remember. I don't remember if that article specifically was.
Okay.
I'd have to look back at the trial. But very specifically, that news article was released. There were a bunch of people that testified that he weighed 270 pounds. Now imagine it's 270 pounds, but he wrapped him up. So you have all of the wrapping materials. You have the carpet that they claim that he wrapped him in, that is presumably blood soaked, and everything else that was used to wrap up this man. So you have a 270-pound man plus weight of carpet plus everything else all stacked up together. So you have up to 300 pounds, give or take, that he would have had to just throw on his shoulder and walk out like a sack of potatoes out to the minivan and set it down, because there's no drag
No,
marks.
no blood on the stairs going down.
No, well, he lived on the first floor, so there's no stairs, but there's no, like, on the patio door, on the entryway, not in the hallway, no dripping, no dragging, nothing anywhere. It's not to be found.
I'm going to just take a note. I also snitch and Houdini. So I want to get to Houdini because
No, that was part of the prison snitch. Yeah.
The carpet. Did they know that the carpet was used?
Well, the carpet was missing.
Okay, they never found the carpet.
They never found the carpet.
The carpet wasn't in your. It wasn't in your brother's burn pit.
It was not in the, and not only did they not find it in the burn pit, they didn't find it in the tree farm burn pit. They also never found any fibers of the carpet in my brother's van. Another important thing to note, that when they did their forensic analysis of the van, they knew what the carpet looked like. They found no evidence of the carpet ever have being placed in my brother's van.
Now, I'm not asking this to show off Eddie's stupid intelligence. What kind of carpet was it?
It was like a 5x7 area rug that was in front or underneath the front of the couch and underneath the two small coffee tables, things that were used as coffee tables that were pictured on the crime scene.
Now, this might be a very detailed question to which you might not know the answer. Defense: did they find carpet residue, carpet particles in Gutierrez's apartment?
I believe that they found hair follicles and what they said were fibers. I might be remembering that incorrectly. I'm sure the chat could be correcting me right now, but they had claimed that they had found some fibers and things like that. And moreover, in the pictures of the crime scene, there was the area that was a little bit cleaner. With on the edge of it, there was what appeared to be a little bloodstains pool that had a definitive corner or edge to it.
I'm just thinking critically, inconceivable. Anybody who's ever dealt with carpets, that the dust particles from a carpet would not be tracked anywhere, especially if you're wrapping it up and bending it. What kind of minivan do you know?
It was like maybe a Chrysler or a Dodge, something like that.
And wrapped up in a carpet, which is, like you mentioned, is not going to bend. So it's not foldable, even if it didn't have a human body in it. Okay, it gets more outrageous. But the issue is that it's not clear what was brought up in for me, like what you have by way of rational insights that are not necessarily presented or were not presented in defense, and you have just an onslaught of circumstantial innuendo type evidence being presented.
Yeah.
So the carpet. Okay.
So the carpet gets loaded in the back of the van. They say that he closes the back hatch or whatever. He goes in, he stashes the phone, and he takes off, or stashed the phone, loaded the carpet, closed it, and then took off. So either way, it created a time window of about 10, 15 minutes to be able to wrap this up entirely. And there's only about a 3 foot by 3.5 or 4 foot, the width of the back of the van, section of carpet missing. It's not all of the carpeting. It's just the rear section from the brackets of the rear seats of the van to the rear bumper, to where the lift gate latches. So that area of the van has carpet missing, not the entire thing, but just that area. That doesn't imply that you slid, a 300-pound man into the back of your van. They kind of infer that he folded him up into a tight little bundle and stuck him in the back 3 feet of the van. That also doesn't make sense, because he's such a large man, and in order to contain all of that bloody mess from bludgeoning a man to death, you would have had to have done a different tier or different level of protection to try and stop that from happening.
Or you, I mean, and again, this is not to be disrespectful. There's a victim in this as well, but or a chainsaw to dismember, but that we know that's not a possibility.
Because it would have had to happen at the apartment, and there was never any testimony to that, any sound of a chainsaw running, so that was a moot point.
Chad is asking me to make sure that we mention the diffuser. Now I remember that the diffuser was still diffusing 40 hours later. What was
diffuser gate? Yeah. So that there's, when you walk in to the apartment, to Rosalia's apartment, the door swings to the left. Okay, door swings to the left. Right in front of you, sort of front and to the left, there's a small, long table, short table that's right there. It had blood splatter on it and things like that. On that table, there's a diffuser pot, a wooden-looking diffuser pot that's sitting on the table.
What is a diffuser pot?
So it's like something where you put like an essence of or some sort of aromatherapy. You fill it with water, and then it steams the water and carries that aroma throughout your dwelling. So it's supposed to be for peace, aromatherapy, relaxation, things like that. Some people might use it similar to incense. So this pot then is sitting on this little table. and it's running when they do the crime scene photographs. And those crime scene photographs were taken somewhere between noon and 1 p.m. on May the 19th. They presented that the murder occurred at about 10 p.m. On May the 17th. In that time frame, it's likely that Mr. Gutierrez is expecting Narita Macias coming over at any time around 9 p.m. that he had loaded the diffuser and it was running on high. So that's what the evidence shows, that both indicator lights are lit, and this diffuser is running on high, not on low, but diffusing it as much as it can, as quickly as possible, and then it's still running with a solid stream of steam coming out of it by midday on May the 19th. So that's 39 to about 40 hours later, give or take, on this time window, which is not possible to all of our testing and retesting for a diffuser to run on high for that long, even if you overfill it. So this is an issue. That means that someone would have had to have been in the apartment on May the 18th, which is verified by other witness testimony, where a neighbor had heard bickering in the apartment on May the 18th. Another person had called in an anonymous tip, seeing a woman at 4:16 p.m. I was corrected on my last stream, 4:16 p.m. Standing on Rosalio's patio, whom asked the time of someone that walked past. So there's an odd correlation of events where we have then a testimony of there being people in Gutierrez's home on May the 18th, which is a day after allegedly he was murdered. It is at least 12 hours later, if not 16 hours later, than when the phone was placed in the freezer. So the evidence as it's presented does not present well. Furthermore, the phone, speaking of the phone, tested with two alleles, so two DNA alleles that were a 0% match to Zach, meaning that someone else handled the phone and put it in the freezer that was not my brother, absolutely, and was not Rosalia Gutierrez, and was not Celia Patterson. Likely, the person that handled the phone is the criminal that they need to investigate, the person that needs to be in prison for this crime.
And so I'm just thinking, like, hypothetically, someone's there. Why are they there, and why are they putting up a diffuser? Maybe, I don't know. It makes the place smell better. If
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Fascinating in a horrible way.
Right. What do you do? Not everybody soils themselves when they pass away, but maybe Gutierrez did.
Well, I mean, but even just
maybe the smell of blood.
Blood doesn't. I mean,
yeah. Maybe the smell of blood. It could have been anything, and it's. I mean, again, the way I'm describing this is a little flippant, and I just wanted to say this. I'm not trying to disparage the crime that occurred or the sorrow that Celia Patterson or Rosalio's family, friends, or children are experiencing. It's very important to recognize that this is a human life, and this man had people that loved him. So by all means, please don't take it that way. It is an absolute tragedy for him to disappear from the people that loves him or that love him and loved him. And it's just so we're clear that people out there listen.
I don't think good faith people who are thinking sincerely would even have that suspicion. So don't worry about that. Although, I mean, it's good that you worry about it, but anyone who's going to believe that is not going to be convincible in any event.
Sure.
So the DNA evidence on the bag of the cell phone that's put in the freezer does not match your brother.
It's not on a bag. It's just on the cell phone. So Gutierrez had a money clip that was laying on the couch. They had pictures of his wallet or his fold that was on the couch. There was no cash in it, and they found the cell phone and I believe his ID and maybe a credit card or two in the freezer days later when the crime scene was released. So here we have a situation where someone went through his possessions. They went through his wallet. They took what cash was there. They threw the phone and some other items from that billfold in the freezer, and then they took off.
People in the chat are hypothesizing on a connection between the prior 10-pound marijuana trafficking and this. I mean, totally unrelated. Other people saying it's totally unrelated. People don't make connections. Totally unrelated.
Totally unrelated. There's no connection to this.
Okay.
My brother's charge in South Dakota was specifically just for driving some marijuana, through the state of South Dakota. And he pled guilty to it, and they gave him probation and some jail time. And at this point, his jail time has been served because he was allowed to serve it at the same time while waiting trial for this case.
Oh, let's get to the most. Unless there's another piece of evidence that is more outrageous or that we haven't yet gotten to, the prison snitch. I swear to you, this is when we're talking with the panel of lawyers, and I'm like, it's not possible that evidence was presented of a prison snitch whose incriminating testimony against your brother is your brother's alleged admission is an alleged night terror in which your brother is sleeping, screams out something in his sleep, wakes up, and this prison snitch says, tell me that you look into my eyes and tell me that you didn't do it, or tell me that you did it. And he looks into this prison snitch's eyes and says, I did it.
Yeah, I did.
Flesh out that outlandish story.
Yeah, that's you summarized it very well. So Munch is the snitch's jailhouse nickname. This guy says that while he was bunked with my brother had the top bunk and he had the bottom. He was struggling to sleep and my brother was sleeping. And during my brother's sleep, he said, "Die, die, die, motherfucker." And then when he woke up shortly after that, Munch asked him. He said, "You talked in your sleep." He said, "Oh, did I?" In response, like, "Wow, what did I say?" And he said, "Man, you said some stuff about what you did." He said, "Did you really do it?" And he said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Look me in the eye. Tell me that you did it." And he jumped down off of his bunk and he looked him right in the eye and he said, "Yeah, I did it." That was the confession that Munch presented to the court. And simultaneously to this confession, this quote, this "die, die, die." The camera switched to Michael Gravely, the prosecutor, and he's mouthing simultaneously with the witness, "Die, die, die." You can slow it down. You can play it in real time. You can absolutely see him mouthing along with the testimony of the witness. This is a huge problem. One that was brought before the court. One that even Judge Schrader said, it appears as if you're saying it simultaneously. And then he says, "I'm keeping this," referring to the flash drive that was given to the court, and then proceeded to do absolutely nothing about it. And this is after Michael Gravely had inserted himself as a witness in the case as well. He refused to recuse himself. He said he had a personal vested interest in making sure that my brother stayed in jail. It was personal for Michael Gravely. And this is a problem, that the prosecutor was willing to go to any length to try and get my brother locked up. This is ethically just unimaginable.
Well, I'm trying to see if I can find the "die, die, die" clip in real time here. I think I found. I'll find a shorter one. I don't want to fish through a 13-minute video, but I saw it. It's in your face. And this is one of the other elements that we've discussed this, Robert Barnes and I, in our streams. Like when you have a shocking crime, an unresolved crime, in order to feel like you're quelling public concern, uncertainty, find anybody. And at least if you have a conviction of anybody, people could sleep well. Crime solved, even if it's not a crime solved. And and that speck of DNA, not knowing if it's even blood. And is it outlandish? I mean, I still think like a critical person, maybe blackpilled a little bit. O.J. Simpson, in as much as I think he was guilty, I didn't know that they actually literally took blood out of a vial, put it on a sock to make the evidence, and they found out about it only because the blood that they put on the sock contained whatever chemical is in the vials, and they knew that the blood came from a vial. I mean, okay, the idea that the only DNA connecting any of this is a speck in an otherwise clean minivan that was allegedly used to transport a 270-pound man in a carpet, it becomes outlandish.
I mean, I wouldn't classify it as clean. I would say that it was otherwise DNA free.
I mean, crime clean.
It was a filthy minivan with, by the way, other trash bags that you can see in some of the pictures. A larger contractor-sized trash bag, a box of them, jammed below the passenger seat.
Even more exonerating, because it means that van was not thoroughly cleaned out after an alleged use for a cover-up of a crime.
Absolutely.
Now, so the snitch, I mean, it's outlandish, but there was an issue about the snitch confession not being recorded, and I forgot the details of that.
Michael Gravely, Jessica Krzyzarek, the ADA, the one that was also prosecuting the case, Detective Correa, and I believe one of the other detectives, 4 people went and interviewed Munch for his testimony. Just the 4 of them, completely off camera, and the 4 of them sat down and worked out his testimony completely off camera. So there's no testimony, no recorded evidence of this testimony, none whatsoever.
Is this known during trial, or is this stuff that you only know that's not submitted as trial?
John Birdsall pointed out, and he said, "So you sat down with these individuals," and he pointed specifically at these individuals to give your testimony. These individuals, these 3 people right here. And he pointed out all 3 of them. All 3 of the people sitting at the prosecutor's table, all 3 of them were present for him giving his jailhouse snitch testimony with one other police officer, and no body cam footage, no interrogation footage, nothing there to verify it. And it was so aggravating for us to see that they were willing to go to any length. The reason why there was a second jailhouse snitch brought in was because Gravely had offered the same thing to him, offered him some sort of deal to let this guy get off of some of his charges in some way, that he would put in a good word for him, right? And that's the promise, just like a handshake agreement. I'll put in a good word for you.
I think I don't know when this was adduced as evidence, but he says, "I haven't promised him anything. But dot. I mean, it's the insidious nature of corruption. You don't need the email saying, 'Here's what I'm going to give you.' They know you play ball, and we'll help you later on down the line." Right. Jailhouse snitch meets with the prosecutors, unrecorded, undocumented. taking his story, and
Yep.
that was like the smoking gun. He looked me in the eyes and said, "I did it." And again, I look at that and say, I don't believe that it happened. Period. Even if it did happen, there's a part of me that understands that your brother, who is in his own mind and by the facts, it says may be innocent of murder in a jailhouse with the hardenedest criminals on earth. And what is he going to do to try to protect himself? He might say, "Yeah, I did it. Don't fuck with me. You'll end up." He might even say that for his own self-protection, much like I thought would be a reasonable explanation for his nickname Houdini. So this snitch says that your brother's going around prison saying my nickname's Houdini because I make bodies disappear.
I mean, for the record, my brother has never, ever, ever claimed that he did it. Not a single time. It's never been his stance. He's always stood by his innocence and stood by the fact that he never committed this crime.
No, but what I mean to say is, like, it's conceivable even in jail.
It's conceivable that somebody would, right, to protect themselves, but he specifically never did that.
Okay. And now apparently the rumor was that his nickname was Houdini within prison. Everyone's got their nicknames. His was Houdini because he boasted about being able to make bodies disappear. That testimony or that evidence came from the snitch witness?
Yes, but then it was not verified by the other person from the jailhouse that he had never heard him called Houdini, and that was again totally made up. So I mean, there's very little believability in that whole testimony, almost none really, other than the fact that he was there with him. There was the issue of the solitary confinement, the location of the cells, and also how the rounds work in solitary when you're taken out to eat and what's allowed. People from upstairs are allowed to walk down past the people downstairs in their holding cells. And there was some argument, some litigation between each side about whether or not one prison snitch was capable of telling the other prison snitch how to jump on somebody else's case, and that was an argument that occurred in the courtroom. And they actually brought in pictures from one of the guards, some body cam pictures about the location of the two cells that each of them were in when they were in solitary simultaneously. But that didn't rule out the possibility of them talking. It just made the claim that they couldn't do it from when they were in the cells individually.
Let me bring it up, Solomon. I think I got the good part here. Let me see this. Yeah, this is it. Here, check this out.
I remember I was laying there the night before. I told him about the next day, but I was laying there and I was reading my book and I heard him shout in his sleep before he woke himself up.
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, "Die, die, die, motherfucker."
There you go.
There it is. And you see the look of disbelief on my brother's face, like, what is this guy talking about? And he's just like sort of dumbfounded, like, what? Like, this never happened.
It wasn't try to steel man it. It wasn't as though the witness started to say die and then he came in like, oh, no. Yeah, he started, boom, that's the answer.
Die. Yeah.
All right. That's the prison house snitch. That was the confession. And by the way, the media headlines ran with obsessed ex-boyfriend confessed to killing per snitch.
Yep.
They didn't say snitch, but yeah.
They never even touched the fact that Gravely was mouthing it. They never even talked about it. So think about that. I mean, the mainstream media ran with this idea that my brother was obsessed, right? That he was the obsessed ex-boyfriend murder trial. They already painted him as a murderer, and they painted him as someone obsessed with Sadie. That he was this crazed, obsessed man. And then they continue to run headlines like this, that he's intimidating his daughter, and then they run headlines that he admitted to doing the crime. As opposed to the more notable headline, which is that the prosecutor is mouthing along with testimony, that the prosecutor is leading questions where, oddly enough, coincidentally enough, when he gives multiple choice answers, the answer is almost always, if not always, the last option that he gives, and does it consistently. He also mouths yes multiple times, along with people on the witness stand. He does this consistently because he's gone through all of these testimonies with people so much, because he's nailed it down to the word verbatim, like what is it, a play mom, like a mom sitting in the crowd while their daughter is on stage or their son is on stage. It's grotesque.
Actually, I forgot to ask when it came to the testimony of your niece, Zach's daughter. Everybody was saying like she was prepped for 40 hours with the DA. I just wondering.
That's what I was told.
Yeah, where does that number come from? Is that?
That was a figure that was given to me by my father. So,
but they whether it's 40 hours, 30 hours, 20 hours, the DA spent a considerable amount of time prepping your. Was Sadie present when they were prepping your daughter? That she couldn't have been.
Nope.
So they have a 14, or she's 14 or 13 at the time.
Depending on which trial that they were prepping her for, because they had a mistrial prior to this. So they had spent a bunch of time in February leading up to the trial prepping her for this testimony, like a lot of time, and it's not okay. Like I said, there's a specific statute for minor testimony in the state of Wisconsin that allows a minor to just give a videoed statement just on a camera, to be able to give a statement and then let it be. It is a lower threshold of psychological fallout. It is more respectful to the child, and they specifically chose not to. After the ADA, who's now a judge, I believe, had said the reasoning why they put a restraining order, a no contact order between my brother and my niece, was that she was an easily manipulatable minor witness. This is a horrific thing for them to do. They knew that she was manipulatable. They knew that she was impressionable, and they did it anyway.
Yeah, people in the chat are saying we're not sure if the mother would have been present, but if they're both witnesses, you can't prep one witness in front of another normally. But this doesn't look like things were done normally to begin with.
I believe it was all one-on-one.
Okay, I think we're getting to all of it here. The issue about how gravely the prosecutor made himself a witness in this trial, because this is, like, I've never done criminal law. I studied it, never practiced it. But the idea that there would have actually been a moment during the trial where the prosecutor was compelled to leave the courtroom while a witness testified and then came back to continue being the prosecutor, it makes no sense to me. And when I talk about this with Robert Barnes, during our weekly stream, I'll ask him his take on this. Just explain the context of how that happened and the details as to how that happened.
So there were multiple witnesses that actually changed their testimony after speaking with Michael Gravely. There were a few statements read that had changed their testimony. One of them was for Narita Macias. Narita Macias is the girl that was showing up at Rosalia Gutierrez's apartment on the night of May the 17th. She was his Facebook dating app hookup. She was the girl that showed up and was texting him during the time of the alleged murder. She claimed that she was outside of his building, saw a larger black woman come down the stairs, go outside, and that was all she saw. She didn't see anyone else go in or out of the apartment building at all. This was specifically damaging to the state's case because she was there seeing no culprit go in and out of the apartment, which is problematic. The issue that came up was that Michael Gravely met with her to go over her statement, and then when she claimed that she went to the apartment, he said, "Well, but the MAPS program will take you to the wrong place." And she said, "Oh, does it?" Like, I was confused, and I drove around to a couple spots. And so he goes, "How about this? I'll meet you at the crime scene." He drives to the crime scene. She drives to the crime scene. She parks in the wrong spot. He says, "Aha! You were in the wrong spot the whole time." So that is what they claim transpired. So I don't know where she parked. It was never on body cam footage. There was never photographs taken of where she claims it was. All it was just a statement that she parked over, and they outlined it on the map. It was over to the east of the apartment, not in front of the apartment, where she would have been able to see inside the apartment building. So she changed her statement. But in doing this with her, in meeting her over there and bearing witness to her parking in the wrong spot and going over this with her, he made himself a witness in this case because he witnessed her park in the wrong place. He then refused to recuse himself, and the judge refused to remove him from the case, and they just went with it. It hasn't been done, to my knowledge, since 1978, and I might be wrong on that. I had looked it up on when it became unethical in the state of Wisconsin, and it was not done since then. I don't understand why they allowed it to continue and why Judge Schrader just allowed him to continue to prosecute the case. He should never have been allowed to continue to prosecute the case. It gives him false credibility. It creates all sorts of headaches with the case in general. It's bad practice. It's completely unethical.
Yeah, I mean, to say the flip side is, okay, they'll kick him out and just get someone equally as corrupt in, but maybe you get someone who's potentially equally corrupt. Maybe you get someone who's not and who will not seemingly coach the witnesses while they're on the stand.
What are they going to do? Bring Binger in?
It's unreal. I
mean, both Binger and Gravely made an attempt, or Binger outright did, but Gravely asked the judge for permission to violate my brother's rights. He asked the judge on more than one occasion how close to the line he could get to violating my brother's right to silence. He asked the judge for permission to infer to violate his right to silence, and he followed that up with also making sure that he tried to turn the burden of proof on the defense. And the judge allowed that to happen.
Okay, flesh that out.
So there's a point in the trial where they try to assert that the defense can test the evidence as well on the crime scene, which implies that the defense had some onus to try and test all of the evidence presented in the trial, some onus of proof to the court. So Gravely actually states that in front of the jury that well, the defense can test this too. Am I correct? And then the defense objects, but the judge allows him to continue with that. So the defense is then forced to say, but we're not allowed access to the crime scene. We're not allowed to go to the crime scene and test everything that the state didn't collect. So they're then like forced into a position where they have to try and defend why they didn't test evidence that was talked about in the court that was not tested, because the state failed to do their investigation thoroughly and properly. They failed to test items in the apartment that were clearly manipulated by the potential perpetrator, including the shoe rack against the wall, including the coffee tables moved off of the carpet, things like that were moved around or could have possibly been moved by the culprit, the perpetrator, on the crime scene, that they never ever bothered testing or processing. It's a huge issue, a massive issue that he burden shifted during the trial in front of the jury. It's unconscionable.
I'm just going to read it. There's a couple of rants here. One says, hey, thank you. Hold on. But one is a substantive one. It says they didn't have the spec evidence for 7 months. There was no forensic evidence for 7 months, but they still leaned on Zach the entire time without investigating a single other soul. That's from Jen RN310. Fleet Lord Avatar has a link to something that's not related to this.
That's a really important point, is that realistically, this situation, they had no DNA results on anything until December of that year, late November, December of 2020. So during the rest of that time, the police were supposed to be looking at all possibilities. A good investigator would start at the bottom, would chase every potential motive for making a man disappear. They did not chase most of the financial issues that Gutierrez had in his life. He was back on his child support. He owed Michael Campbell a few $1,000s. He owed another guy like $60. There were some issues with money. He was bad with money. It was very clear. His mother had set up a joint checking account and then dumped money in it the previous week. He had taken $1,000 out of that joint account and used it to buy his children's baseball supplies and then food and stuff for the kids for the weekend. So there's evidence of him being very bad with money, owing people money. They didn't follow those leads, and they didn't. Schrader actually told the defense that they weren't allowed to present it in court, that they weren't even allowed to bring his financial woes to court. So you have a gross mishandling of this case by the police. These detectives didn't bother to chase any other lead for 7 months while they continued to search properties related to my brother. They searched the Christmas tree farm, like I said, 3 times. They searched the house in Belgium that he was working on. They searched Harrington Beach State Park. They searched his property, right? They had the dump site, the where the dumpster from Gutierrez's apartment building was dumped the morning of the report, May the 19th. They had that on May the 19th. Later that day, they went to the actual dump, the public dump, where the garbage truck went and dumped the contents. They had the section roped off. They had police there. When they heard that the carpet was missing from my brother's van, they released the dump site, assuming that there was no evidence put in that dumpster that was worth any evidentiary value. There might have been Rosario Gutierrez in that dump site. We'll never know.
It's outrageous once you hear this. And the tactic. Oh, that was a question I was going to ask. How long after was your brother arrested?
He was arrested.
Formally charged, I should say.
He was formally charged with murder in December of 2020. So they didn't charge him with homicide until after they got the DNA test result from the back of the van, from that single speck, that one speck, with no other corroborating evidence. None. Moreover, with evidence that came back from the cell phone that was exculpatory, but they didn't bother following up on.
Was there any issue of withholding other exculpatory evidence from the defense?
So this is the issue with the first mistrial, was that this Nerita Macias situation was revealed to the defense in the opening statements of the prosecution. So the change in testimony was revealed that was March of 2022. So last year in March, during the first trial, during the prosecution's opening statements, they objected to it because, one, the state had waited until, I believe, the Thursday or Friday before the trial. They did not give the defense enough time to dig through a massive dump of information that the prosecution laid on the defense. They didn't give them ample time to go through a bunch of evidence that they dumped onto the discovery. So the state did this tactic where they last minute dumped evidence that some of it was damning for the state, and then they changed the testimony of Nerita Macias as well during opening statements after jury selection during the first trial, to which they called it a mistrial because it was something that they absolutely never disclosed to the defense at all, and it was part of the defense's argument against the timeline. So they had to then revisit the evidence presented and then go for it again. That meant that they set a new trial date for, I believe it was September of last year. Unfortunately, in the interim, Judge Schrader had fallen. He had taken an injury and was hospitalized and was out of commission. They then just they canceled the court date because Schrader was injured and hospitalized, and they never set a new one. So my brother's lawyers filed a habeas corpus to try and release him because he had his right to speedy trial violated.
Mhm.
The issue with that was that then the Chief Justice had to oversee the decision on the habeas corpus. So the Chief Justice had to sit in and weigh in on this for the I believe it's Second District Court, maybe it's Third District Court or Second District Branch 3 or whatever it is. So the Chief Justice has to sit in. The first thing he says is, I have to recuse myself from this case. I'm personally connected to people involved in this case. I should not be able to make decisions. But then he moves forward to deny my brother habeas corpus and deny my brother change of venue.
Your brother's in jail this entire time?
In jail the whole time.
He has been in jail since being formally charged, so he was out for 7 months, or he was out.
No. He was formally charged with stalking on May the 19th, and they held him in jail. They set his bail at $35,000 for stalking. Only stalking. But they set it high because the judge said that he thought that he was a flight risk.
Well, I mean, whatever risk he might have been or might not have been, one thing's for clear. Once he's in jail, at least he cannot be accused of further trying to conceal evidence. So if the fact that they can't find anything except this spec 7 months later.
They took the van, but the DNA testing took that long. So they waited to even formally charge him with homicide until the DNA test came back.
Solomon, have I not asked you anything that I should have asked you? Is there any information that
I don't think that we've touched very heavily on the stalking, and it's very important that we clear the air on the stalking. The homicide is right out. It's physically not possible. Not only did they testify to there not being any video footage of him driving to or from the crime scene on an impossible time frame, but in order for him to avoid the traffic cameras, he would have had to detour through country roads and in a roundabout way that would have had to have added a half hour to an hour or more to his drive time for a very long drive to begin with, an hour plus, an hour and 9 minutes, hour and 7 minutes one way. The homicide is not physically possible. That is definitive to the state's timeline, to what they presume. It was impossible for my brother to have committed this crime. The other issue is the stalking, because he was charged with 4 things. One of them was homicide. Another thing was the hiding of a corpse, which is the disposal of this corpse, which they also never found any evidence of. Then there were 2 counts of stalking, one versus Sadie Beecham, the other versus Rosalio Gutierrez. So there's 4 counts against him total that they found him guilty of all 4 counts. There's some issues with the stalking. We touched a little bit on how Sadie had him regularly over at her home, how he was welcome to do laundry at her house, how they were co-parenting together, and all of those things. Though there was at least a tolerance between the 2 of them, even with the shaky state of their relationship, that he was allowed to be present and allowed to be present in the children's lives. The other issue is that she had sent him repeated text messages, things about inviting him over for dinner, things about calling him a pet name and saying XOXO and telling him good night, asking him why he didn't spend the night. Her specifically saying to Rosalio Gutierrez, or maybe to Zach directly, I don't remember what the recipient was, but she said, and I quote, "If you fuck with me, I fuck with you back." That's what she said to him very specifically. That is not fear. That is not an extreme emotional state. That is her getting ready to mama bear at him, specifically about the placement of the children. This is a custody battle between the 2 of them. That is an issue that made her then try and start developing this tale of him stalking her, because he was then making sure that he was getting ready for family court, and he had accused her of not being home very often and leaving the children and leaving them behind and things like that, which was a concern for him because their daughter at the time was 11 and the twins were, I believe, 4 at the time, 4, almost 5. So at that point, the kids are young. And she would do that frequently, or leaving them with friends. There was the issue with her going to Mexico in the beginning of March and setting up babysitters with her friends, as opposed to giving my brother the right of first refusal, which is exactly what should have happened. Is that she should have reached out to him and said, "I'm taking off. I'm going on vacation. Do you have time? What's your schedule like to watch the children?" She specifically avoided doing that to then have it slip to him later, and then he showed up in the middle of the night, which was testified to, that he had shown up and woken the children up and made them breakfast before school. The timeline on that is they said early in the morning, but there was an assumed timeline by Rebecca Jekyll, whom I don't think is a trustworthy witness based on the things that she said. There's also testimony that was presented between Sadie Beecham and Rosalio Gutierrez about this Plan B, which included breaking my brother's legs. There's a very important thing that they were talking about, a custodial dispute, and Sadie was complaining to Rosalio Gutierrez, who had 2 previous custodial disputes, and he was talking about building a paper trail. And she said, "I'm already doing that." She specifically had already testified to the fact that she was building a case against my brother for taking to family court. This was all about placement of children and money. This is very specifically about child support and that sort of thing. So we have a situation between Sadie and Rosario, where she says, "Oh, I've definitely thought about a plan B," and plan B being that Rosario or somebody that Rosario knows would show up at my brother's home and beat the daylights out of him, maybe breaking his leg to send him a message that they can't mess that he can't mess with her, or whatever it is that they're inferring, and when they're arguing about custody. So this is the type of situation that my brother is up against. Someone that's willing to entertain the plan B in this, and even says to the man after he asks her for permission, he said, "I won't do it unless you tell me to." That she says, "Poppy, no snitch," and he tells her to delete the text messages, and she does. This is on the border of criminal. This is an issue that the police never even bothered investigating her for. Furthermore, she has discussions with her best friend Rebecca Jekyll about picking up a cell phone, and then less than a week before Rosario goes missing, Rebecca Jekyll texts Sadie and says, "The phone call has been placed. It'll happen, or it'll begin in the next week, and you won't know who or where." Those are what she says, and I think I have the quote somewhere around here, but very specifically saying that it will begin in the next week, and then and that's in reference to what? And when questioned on the stand, they say, "Oh, that was just banter." And Rebecca Jekyll says, "Well, I was just trying to throw Zach off because I thought that he was listening or watching our text messages," which is completely not believable at all. Their testimonies are all over the place. They impeach themselves with their own statements. They're inconsistent. If you watch their testimonies, they are not trustworthy witnesses. Period. And I understand that that's up to the jury to decide in making this decision about the conviction. But the reality is that they absolutely contradict their own testimony consistently through, and they have this very suspicious line of text messages that the police never even bother looking at. They never actually investigate Rebecca Jekyll, her connection, this mysterious cell phone, nothing that she did. Absolutely nothing. How many times can the police fail to investigate a suspicious actor adjacent to a man's disappearance for them to be at fault for negligence?
Well, it's not just it's that, and it's that they've placed all of their resources and all of their interest on one person who it might be the easiest to go after. And the media did a good job leading up to this trial to paint an image of someone who went into a trial without a chance is not necessarily the right statement, because from what you're describing, from what I understood, and from what I've seen, the evidence is literally not there. I mean, no body, no weapon, no other than the speck, no carpet, no the burn pit, which everyone thinks is the most incriminating thing on earth, doesn't even have blood on the remaining unburned sock. What are you doing now? What are you doing now in order to seek justice on your end? Like you've got an appeal.
Yes.
For whatever that's worth. It's tough to overturn jury convictions.
It really is, yeah.
There's the pending issue about, the issue about the DA there, Gravely. Is his name Gravely?
Yeah, Michael Gravely.
Oh, that's an unfortunate last name also. Mouthing off to the witness, or mouthing the witness testimony. I mean, even that sanctions, ethics, whatever, you still got the condemnation. You're working for an appeal, and are you also looking to get private investigators to conduct your own potential investigation here?
That's correct. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to touch base on the fourth charge, which is against Rosario Gutierrez, which there's no evidence presented whatsoever. None. There's no evidence that was ever presented. So I'll get to the path forward, but very, very specifically, he even said in a text message to Sadie, "I'm not worried," when referencing Zach and what Zach might do, and talked about going to Zach's property and giving him a taste of his own medicine,
and you're talking in terms
going
of
through his vehicle.
In terms of the stalking charge, the idea being, look, it's not stalking, they're not scared, and it's almost consensual invitation or interactions.
Exactly. Yeah. In this case, you might maybe plausibly have some argument for criminal harassment at most, but in this case, he's completely innocent of stalking. It's not there.
Okay.
So again, this is a massive issue that they found him guilty on all four charges with nothing other than hearsay and speculation, and a prosecutor that lied and spun a tale with a lot of maybes and supposition through his entire closing argument. So with that, misleading the jury, which is supposed to be factual in basis, in the ethics, in the actual in the bar association, what this is supposed to do. It's supposed to be a factually based argument, an opine based in fact to the jury to convince them that your argument is sound, and it just wasn't. It was full of lies and mistruths. So that's a huge issue. Gravely's lack of ethics, his violation of my brother's constitutional rights, the judge being biased is another thing that is very important to recognize. The rulings that he made, the fact that he refused to allow I mentioned the Denny motion against Michael Campbell. There are three things that a Denny motion requires. It's the motive, the opportunity, and the means to commit the crime. You have a potential motive of being owed a bunch of money, the means by which get an enclosed trailer, and the opportunity. He was available that night to commit this crime, and the only person that testified that he was home was Erica Saylor, which could have been his accomplice in this because they had seen a brunette woman on the patio on the day of the 18th. It's very possible that she was his accomplice in doing this, and of course she would cover up for him if that's the case. Now that's an opinion. I don't know that she is the person, but I know that something happened on the 18th, and it seems to be consistent with the evidence presented that the 18th is a suspicious day. Now, if you're looking at this through an objective lens, we have the judge ruling that allowing the DA to define the speck in the van as blood, refusing to allow the defense to present the debt as evidence of a potential motive for any other actor to commit this crime. He's letting the DA say whatever he wants and allowing him to inference the violation of my brother's constitutional rights. And he sits on his thumbs the entire time. Furthermore, in the end of the trial, when we're in sentencing, he then he disparages my sister's letter to the court, which is written in the format that was provided to us by the court, which includes an introduction of yourself, who you are, and how you're related to the accused, and then you're supposed to go on to present a character statement for the person being sentenced, because every sentencing is supposed to be individualized underneath, I believe, the Sixth Amendment. So then we have the judge willing to potentially even violate an interpretation, at least, of a violation of the Sixth Amendment in not allowing us to speak on my brother's behalf. That is indicative of bias of a judge. And I don't know that he's ever had anything to overturn based on this bias, but based on the rulings that he made in the pretrial hearings, during the trial, what he allowed, the fact that he refused to give Gravely any consequences for his inappropriate conduct in the courtroom, in mouthing along with witness testimony, or making him recuse himself from the case, the fact that the judge refused to do that implies that the judge was biased, very, very biased in pursuing this case. And the question is, what would the judge's motive be to be biased? We have what is the unicorn case, right?
Well, just overall concealing generalized corruption. I mean, it's what
right.
Corruption does not like to expose corruption, but
we also have a unicorn case. We have a bodiless homicide, right? We have a bodiless homicide.
It's the irony: bodiless homicide, but then charges for concealing a body. I mean, that's it's almost Kafkaesque.
Yeah, exactly. It's the snake eating its own tail, right? It's mind-boggling from our perspective as the family. We were wondering why they'd set the bail so high initially. We didn't know, and then we find out that this man is missing. There's some issues that we had with this. We were trying to plan for the future of what was going to happen with my brother's property, with his rentals. We were under the impression that this was going to be an in and out, that there was not much evidence that they were bringing, and that this wasn't going to turn sideways until they found the speck of blood, and they asserted that it was blood, and that it was in the back of my brother's van. It wasn't ever blood. Because from us, we're only getting things from the press. We read these press releases and we're like, wow, that sounds terrible. I don't see how that was possible for them to have found that. But if they found it, they found it. So we're trying to go into the trial with an open mind. We sit through the trial, we see what they present, and then we're absolutely outraged by this, completely outraged that they had taken him and they had run him through a kangaroo court to try and get a conviction, because the win was more important than justice. And because the win was more important, they not only destroyed my brother's relationship with his children, destroyed a massive piece of our family, and altered my brother's entire life, but they also destroyed justice for Rosalio Gutierrez. If that man is dead, the perfect person that killed him, that person should be in prison. And the police did not do their diligence, and this court did not do them justice in running a case like this. It is an absolute mockery of our justice system, and it's not the only time this happens. It happens all the time in our court system, and it is an issue that prosecutors are able to lie, spin, and tell false, fraudulent testimony, fraudulent things to a jury to try and get a conviction over presenting truth. It is presenting bias to a jury to try and get a conviction, to try and get that W. Like you said, put a body in prison to appease the populace, more than it is about finding the person that did it and putting them in jail where they belong. This is an issue with our justice system, and it sickens me that we're on the losing side of this. That both the Gutierrez family and my family gets to reap the corruption in the Kenosha system at the very least, if not the wider system as a whole. And what can we do to overturn this? We're raising money, as you said, for private investigators. We're raising money to investigate, the actual case itself, to see if we can get a proper investigation, to look at the jury, to see if there was bias there, to look at the DNA evidence, because that needs to be revisited to see what might have gone wrong, or what they did wrong, or what that evidence really shows. So we need to be able to do all of those things. We need to be able to order the court transcripts. All of these things cost tens of thousands of dollars. This is not just a drop in the bucket. This is a very expensive thing to do. And the average cost of an appeal is somewhere around $150,000 by the end of it, and that's even with court-appointed attorneys. And this is not just cut and dry. The attorneys that we talked to, had told us $150,000 to $200,000 to represent my brother for the appeal, and that's that's not going to happen. We're not going to be able to come up with another $150,000 to $200,000 because my brother's already spent that much on his current attorneys. It's not like you get the winning hand here if the jury gets it wrong, because the prosecutor is allowed to lie and manipulate. Then the consequences on the families and on the accused are so egregious that they're almost insurmountable. That's why the Innocence Project and the Exoneration Project exists, because it's an uphill battle. And no matter what, you're looking at, on average, 12, 14 years in prison before you're released. How many years is that of my niece's life? How many years is that of my nephew's life? They'd be completely estranged. This is criminal in action. I don't understand why we have no room for consequence on prosecutors that are willing to withhold exculpatory evidence, are willing to lie to get convictions. If you can prove that a prosecutor did that, why is there not consequences to their actions? I'm not saying that we should completely overturn prosecutorial and judicial immunity, but if they knowingly tamper with evidence, they knowingly put someone in prison wrongfully, they know that they're doing the wrong thing and they're just doing it to win the case, then they should serve jail time. They should be removed from their position, and they should be fined very heavily. And I believe in that very strongly.
I don't think there's many people who are going to disagree with you on that. Solomon, so I'll put the link to the Give, Stand, Go. I'll pin that afterwards. Now, to end this, I don't know if you're comfortable doing it. I unheard of that they don't let the family of Zach speak, even if he was convicted. You had a statement. Do you want to read the statement that you would have read? I don't want to put you on the spot.
I find that it doesn't have the same emotional impact the follow-up times. I can read it. But
so you know what? No, not necessarily. I mean, I think it's just a question of there's going to be there will be no undoing of that wrong as it's been. All right, now so people are going to go Give, Stand, Go. What can they do? Where can they find you? And what can they do to help?
I think I can at least cite, because I've talked about quite a bit of my statement here already in my interview with you. It's something that I believe very strongly in. There is something that people should be aware of, and that's the exoneration projects. The National Registry of Exoneration, their statistics on wrongful convictions. It's something that people believe only happened consistently before DNA evidence became an issue, or became the mainstream in getting convictions. But the reality is that there's a lot of errors in DNA evidence processing, and unfortunately, because of that, we have the statistics from the National Registry of Exoneration saying that somewhere between 2 and 10% of all convictions are wrongful convictions outright. There's an estimated up to 230,000 inmates in the United States prison system that are innocent, and exonerated people have already served over 25,000 years in our correctional system as of June of 2021. That should put some things into perspective for people that believe that our justice system is getting it right every time, and are so willing to jump on the mainstream media bandwagon, where the mainstream media is using clickbait titles to try and get people to invest themselves into stories of someone that's accused of a crime who is presumed innocent. This is an important optic of our judicial system. One of the core pillars is that the accused is innocent unless proven beyond reasonable doubt that they committed the crime. Yeah. And that is beyond probably did it. That is beyond, well, most likely. That if there is another explanation behind the evidence presented, behind the situation presented, all of the evidence as it's presented, if there's another feasible situation presented, if there's another way for you to rationalize how the crime could have been committed as a human being, the answer is not guilty. We need to be cognizant about that as citizens, as potential jurors, is a very important thing, because people get it wrong a lot.
It's not that they get it wrong. They get it wrong when there's a concerted effort. So, it's modern day Coliseum type justice.
That's right.
And the statistics are they're shocking, and it's why as an adult I've come to realize, like, I can't support the death penalty anymore, even if in principle I do, because like this situation, the one coming out of I think it's Oklahoma, Glossley, it's one after the other. And I started off thinking, okay, the jury must have gotten it right, and I heard the headlines, and then I just scratched the surface, and then you keep scratching. Solomon, hold on, I had a last thought.
Ways to get a hold of me. So the Give Send Go, you posted the link. We also have our free Zachariah Anderson shirts. We have the free Zachariah Anderson shirts, as you see right here. Those are on Bonfire. I sent you a link to those as well. So if you want to buy free Zachariah Anderson swag, that's where you go. We have two different links. One is, I think I just sent you one of them.
Actually, I see them now in the private chat, so I'll use those to pin afterwards.
All right, and then there's also our Facebook group. So if you want to join our cause and use your voice to join us, hashtag free Zachariah Anderson, as you see right below me, right there. We have a Facebook group. We've got over 1,000 members in our Facebook group right now, all working towards pushing for freeing my brother, or helping us organize for the appeal and donate. You can also get information there. We're posting on, if you want to write Zach letters, he's happy to be a pen pal with people. Please write him the old style way. He prefers it that way. It costs quite a bit of money for internet access and per message. So we'll have his new address. He was just transferred facilities, posted on our Facebook group very shortly. And if you're able to, please give to the Give Send Go. It helps us tremendously pay for these expenses that I talked about. These are all major ticket issues, tens of thousands of dollars. It is not inexpensive to try and overturn a conviction, let alone defend someone in the court of law. If only if you're able. If you're not able, or otherwise, even if you are able, please spread word. Viva, you're doing this for us right now. Thank you very much. This raises awareness. We should all be cognizant of the fact that if this conviction is not overturned in the appeals court, that means that it's been tried in the appeals court and upheld, which makes the case precedential. The judge himself, Schroeder himself, said specifically that he allowed more hearsay into this case than he has ever allowed in any case in 40 years on the bench. That is concerning to all of us as citizens, that we could infringe upon our rights as individuals if this is upheld, to the point where hearsay legislation could be changed based on a precedence established in my brother's case. That is not okay for us as individuals to protect our ability to defend ourselves in situations where finger point accusations can put you in jail, can put you in prison. We have a justice system in the state of Wisconsin where you're allowed to charge someone for time incarcerated. So you can finger point someone out, have them arrested for stalking like this. They can be thrown in jail, and then they can be charged room and board. So not only are you stripped, you're fined, you might lose your job and everything else while you're waiting your day in court to then prove your innocence. Afterwards, they can still charge you a monthly fee like rent when you've now lost your job and your life is in tatters. That's legal in the state of Wisconsin. This is wrong on all levels. Everything that they do, if we establish finger point accusations as some sort of valid way to lock someone up in family court, think of the amount of cases of divorce and custody battle that this could affect. This is obscene. It should not be allowed.
All right. Well, I was going to say it's the Pelosi era of justice. You'll be able to prove your innocence in court. And I was skeptical of the degree to which this was a fiasco of justice, and I'm not so skeptical anymore. And I don't think many people would be skeptical after having watched all of this. Solomon, thank you. Godspeed and good luck with everything. We'll say our proper goodbyes after I end this stream, but I'll post it to YouTube afterwards as well in its entirety so everybody can see it there. But Solomon, thank you for coming on and going into such detail.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of the day. Peace out.
Wel, hwnna'n diddorol, o'n i'n meddwl, oedd mae'n siŵr beth i'n meddwl amdano fe, ond eitha arbennig I gwir, mae'n siaradwr dda. Rhaid gwylio rhagor o rhain i'n meddwl, mwyn gweld beth arall sy'n dysgu wrtho fe. Ond nawr y teg, diolch yn fawr iawn I chi gyd yn fod yma heddi. I just thought I'd speak Welsh to you for a little bit, My first language is Welsh, so I thought I'd speak a bit of Welsh. Yeah, my first language. That's why, Erin, when you said I was English, no, I'm Welsh. My first language is Welsh. Cymraeg I fi'n siarad gynta, a Saesneg yn ail. So Welsh first, English second. I always give Welsh words of the day out to all the everyone's streams whenever I do them. I love it. But yeah, my first language is Welsh. No sprechen other Welsh. Cymru, Cymraeg. It's quite similar to English in some ways. Um, I was enjoying the chat. I was seeing about the murder kits and stuff like that. It took me like 2 seconds to figure out that you'd watch this and you've got murder kits, the sardines and all that. So that's quite funny to watch. I do appreciate everybody who's been here. It's hard for me because I'm not used to watching streams like that, and being quiet. I like to just chip in and stuff, but I just find it quite disrespectful if I chip in and give my thoughts, because that was an excellent, excellent interview, I thought. Once again, you learn a lot. I think Solomon is a fantastic speaker and very passionate for his brother. And it just makes me want to be more passionate and do more. I wish I could do more for him and Zach and the family. Um, so sorry if it's boring. You're just watching a video basically, but I do appreciate everyone being here. My thoughts are always the same. He's innocent. What the fuck are we doing? Do you know what I mean? If this doesn't get an appeal, I don't know what will. Um, it's frustrating. I'm finding out a lot, um, because I missed the start. Um, that was his best view was brilliant. Yeah, I just think because all most of you guys are probably used to watching streams where people are just chipping in and saying stuff. It's not really my style. If someone's actually saying an important message or info, I'd just rather listen to them. Do you know what I mean? Rather than um, no, not Saul. I'm not talking about. I mean, I wasn't saying Solomon's boring or anything like that. That was great. What I mean is my streaming because I don't say anything in these ones. Is what I was saying. Um, that's why I didn't interrupt in it. Well, I interrupted once, but I just thought it was very, very good. I did not want to disrespect Viva or Solomon. I thought it was an excellent interview. As I say, other streamers probably do jump in and say a lot, but there's a time and a place, and I don't think I needed to say anything. Um, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. What does Sol do? He's excellent, excellent. Oh, thanks, Beryl. Yeah, I'll say it's just one of those. He's in the school. Okay, yeah. There's a time and a place. I think like EDB does it a lot. She interrupts them and pauses, and uh, I just rather listen sometimes. Um, I think there's a time and place to give your thoughts, but when you got an interview like that, um, yeah, he's got a voice for radio. Genuinely, the guy is so passionate. I could listen to all day. You know, um, you be you, do you. We like you. That is why we are here. Yes, you're just cookie. Your response was respectful and lovely. Yeah, and that's what. Don't get me wrong. I'm not always like that. Sometimes if I watch something, I go, "What the fuck is this shit?" Like, I've done these before. It fucking pisses me right off watching some people. Um, there's a lot of videos out there of me raging and stuff like that, but I don't rage over stuff like this. I think, what can you add to that video? Nothing. I can't add anything to it. I don't think many people can. That was excellent, excellent interview, excellent interviewer as well. So yeah, thank you for everyone being here. I know everyone's dropping out now. That's why I want to say thank you to everyone. I know you're all going now. I really appreciate you being here. Feel free to come back whenever you want. Um, Sea Swept is always around, like a bad smell. She's always in the streams now. I don't think you've missed a day yet. Um, yeah, I've not seen it before, Sea Swept. So um, I was mesmerized. Like I was just listening back. Lama, this chat, this stream. Much needed to say good. Erin, you're more than welcome anytime. The stream this morning was a bit lackluster, but the chat today was great. Lefty's great. We've actually got a really good stream, good sense of humor. No one takes any offense. Um, I'll say we're small but mighty. We're growing every day. We get new members every day. So, um, and if you're up for a bit of fun and actually want to contribute in chat, it's the best place to be because, as I said, I got two mods. We don't block anything. As long as you're not racist, we don't block anything. We fucking put it all through. It's freedom of speech. Do you know what I mean? So and as long as you're not like abusive to any members, we let everything through. And you can say whatever you want and be respectful. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, hope you give us a chance at some point. See Swept, make sure you drag them to some trials or something, so that we can have a bit of fun. As I know that you've all got your own streamers as well, but you're always more than welcome in my streams. So I'm not sure what else to say to you guys. I've been streaming for over 12 hours now, so I'm a little bit hitting the wall. I got a Johnny Depp one if anyone's interested to join tomorrow night. Tomorrow, yeah, no, tomorrow day, 1 o'clock your time, 1 o'clock Eastern. And we're back covering C-Swept, we're back covering what are we covering? Parkland shooter officer again. I do need a rest, so I got this. I got Sunday off and then back on it Monday again. Spanner and me, the fake mod. You have not met my mods yet. If you meet my mods, right, they get so much abuse by people like Lefty. Like Lefty just says anything to them. Like you can say anything to them. They are literally sweethearts. They just don't give a fuck. They're dirty mouth as well. So that's what I love about it. So as long as you don't mind swearing, and some people don't like it, some people have unsubscribed from a channel because they don't like it. Respect it, no worries. But you know what? Fuck off. Because we're swearing in chat, we're swearing here. So I'm happy to be a wench, not a wrench. You're certainly a wench, that's for sure. My kind of people, as I say, more than welcome anytime, Farrell. We also got like Shelley's here. Honestly, Shelley Tarber is one of the best contributors to a stream I've ever met. Her insight and her knowledge. She's only just joined us. Fucking great insight. So, um, we got lawyers, defense lawyers, we got paramedics, we got all sort of shit. I learn every day. So, and we've got Lefty as well. So, but yeah, I appreciate you've all. I've learned some stuff today, and that's my aim on every stream is to learn something. So I've learned a lot from you in chat, and I've learned some stuff here as well. And I know there's people like Shelley, Amy. There's just they've never heard of this trial before. So you're just a stalker. Yeah, don't worry. Everyone starts out like that. Um, yeah, but the difference between my mods do exactly the same as what you guys do. The only difference is my mods have it easy. That's all they do is accept, accept. They they swear more than anybody on my channel. One's Irish, and one's from Pennsylvania. They got more potty mouths than what we have. So you think I'm bad? Jesus, you should listen to them half the time. Um, more the responsibility, yes. Typos, I know. It is hard. Typos. I'm shit with typos as well. Um, yeah, I don't know what else there is. They are great and hilarious. They are great. They get so much abuse though, Shelley. When Lefty starts talking about sending dick pics and stuff like this, and it's like, they love it though. I'm a typo king then. I see the typo is red underneath it, but I just press enter. I'm just like, oh, fuck it, just press enter. Not sure who's left here, but of those left, as I say, diolch yn fawr iawn I chi am fod yma. Thank you very much for being here. Um, obviously from a serious note, with regards to Zachariah, I will get some winners named for the what's her statement? I'm t- Feral is Photoshop queen. What's Erin is hacks queen? What the fuck? This is the thing. This is what happens in my stream. There's inside jokes, and I haven't got a clue, so it goes over my head. You carry on with them. It's way over my head. Um, I also my chat. I'm the only person in the world I think that's never watched the Depp and Heard trial, and everyone takes a piss at me all the time. Yeah, I'm sure it's a long story. I literally come to a stream, tell me, um, it's too long to put in here now, but yeah, as I say, we always got inside jokes. Depp and Heard, everyone does it all the time, and I don't have a clue because I've never watched it. So, you know, That's why I'm streaming every Saturday to try and get the inside jokes, like, So yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to add. Tired, hitting the wall. Hopefully LNC was surprised with trial size Melina. Yeah. Well, how long, Shelley? How long is this bloody officer trial going to happen for, though? Do you know what I mean? Because I'm obviously going to see that till the end. I'm just hoping it's only a couple of days. Because it'd be ideal if he finishes Wednesday and there's a trial Thursday or something. Could need something. And I'll probably do the Zachariah one as well. At some point now, start doing them. It's just hard because if I got 3 days, I'll do them, but it's getting people to watch it. That's the hard bit. Oh, hang on. I need to update my watching hours whilst I'm here. Let me do that, and then I'll log off. 28, 86, try that. 40, okay. Oh, yeah, go over there now. Go over there now. I'm done. We've done 56, 96 hours of watch hours today. So that means I'm 64 hours short of the 4,000 goal. Yeah, go over to MLS, have a good time. There, just drop off. I'm literally gonna, what do you call it? Feral Erin. Do you guys remember any of the new trials? Yeah, don't worry. Um, don't worry. Whenever there's a new trial, we'll just be jumping on it. Once the officer one's done, we'll be just jumping on it. So, whenever we get a chance. So, tick her off. But we're doing well. You guys have helped me add to my hours here, so I appreciate you. 96 hours in total today. What did I say? 40, so that's 64. That means I'm hoping that on Saturday we reach the target. Jesus. I don't know who David is, but poor David. Um, yeah, we just jump on whatever. So I'll say, guys, please feel free to join anytime you want. Um, Incognition. Um, I'm just trying to follow the chat now. I don't know who David is or anything. David's MLS. Is that something Michigan or something? I mean, I could. Did he do something with Chandler or something? Remy legal. Your spelling. It's easy for me. I can just fucking speak like you don't know. You know, lawyer in Michigan. Yeah, did he do something with Chandler or something? I think I saw something. S. Ah, okay. Oh, okay. So I'm in on that joke now. So David is Farrah's boyfriend. Fine, fine, fine. Okay, yeah. So he did. I don't know him, but I've heard the name. There's most. I don't. You stalk David. I don't really do anything with any of them, so I don't know anybody streaming. I don't even watch many of the streams because I don't have the time. Do you know what I mean? So, um, but I did see Solomon do one with Chandler, and I believe MLS was on that one. I think. Um, but now I'm shutting down. People have actually joined in. What the fuck? I'm about to go off. What he's streaming Jody Harris. Ah, yes, 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 yes. Nicholas, yeah, yeah. He's a true crime watcher or something, isn't he? Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. Jody Harris trial. Yeah, I've not seen it. So, But I was speaking about it yesterday, actually, but I've not seen it. There we are. He's been on Chandler's Live. Fine. Do it on MLS Law. You can do it on MLS Law. I would probably do it, but I don't. I'm a loner. I like to do it. I like to get to know people. I've had so many people like promise to do streams and drop out and all that. I'm just a one man band, really. What you see is what you get, and also some people get offended with swearing and stuff and don't want to be associated with that. Um, Theodore Edgecombe. Okay. I'll have to be reminded of that one. Oh, he streamed the whole trial. Oh, okay. Yeah. The problem is I don't like streaming streamers, if that makes sense, because it just makes it all smaller. But also, I like to give my reactions, not just everyone else's. But I will stream it. No, it's fine, Farrell. Look, at C-Swept, she's even worse than you. I will be streaming it. I just need to, whether I do it every Sunday or whether, I just need to plan it out. Kim wants to do it desperately, so I will do it. Um, so yeah, I'll figure something out. It's like, I think 14 days or 14 days, I think it is. So I need 14 days to do it. Unless I can smash it in like 2 days into one or something and do it like 1.25 speed or something. I'll have to figure out because I don't want to be streaming on Sundays during the NFL. Do you know what I mean? So I want to be watching the NFL games. So that's the only. I'll have to work it out. I'll work something out. And next Sunday I can't because I'm doing the Brian Kohlberger with Lady Law and Morgan, so I can't um do that one. But if you please watch that, Lady Law is fantastic. Um, mhm. Well, imagine what I'm like then. Right. There's still people here, and I appreciate you being here, but I just feel bad because I've not got nothing to offer you now, guys. If you got MLS is on, go and watch him. Do you know what I mean? He's gonna be more entertaining than me right now. I'm on my last legs. But 64 hours to go before I thing is, right, I got 64 hours to go before I'm monetized, but I'm not gonna be monetized because they don't like swearing. So I'm not gonna make any money out of videos. Um, he's reading boring stuff. Cool. Yeah, just say it's weird. It's weird, right? How many channels I know channels now that if you say a swear word, they're like, "Oh, kick you out and stuff of chat, or put you in timeout and give you a warning." I'm like, "What the? Why do you do that?" Do you know what I mean? I'd rather not be like. Obviously, this is my job, so I need to be paid, but I'm not going to stop chat swearing and stuff like that. Jesus, why do you do that? That's what brought you to where you're at. So I don't know. I think some people forget where they came from sometimes, but whatevs, innit? Whatevs. Each to their own. Um, so yeah, with that, I think most people have gone bored now, so chat's stopped. So I think that's a sign for me to stop. So with that, then, thank you very much, everyone. Diolch yn fawr iawn. And if you want to learn some Welsh, then you know where I am. Always give out words of the day. Shall I give out a word of the day now? Happy days, Farrell. Thank you. I'll so do you want a word of the day? What's the word? Have you got an English word that you want? Take you all night. I know. I want to learn. Yeah, I mean, you're never going to learn Welsh. No, if that's nope. Yes. Okay. So nope is nah. Nah. Nope is nah. Yes is yeah. Yes is yeah. So nah is nope. Yeah is yes. And thank you is diolch. Diolch. Oh, no worries, no problems at all. Thank you for being here. Oh, well, you don't have to say it, but that's interesting. You haven't yet, not. that I didn't want you to. I'm confused now. Feral, you just confused the shit out of me. I already speak Welsh then. Yeah, and now. So you speak feral housewife, you're gonna be fucking hard work, you are. Fucking, you're worse than fucking sea swept. I can't make sense. It's like you're fucking drunk. One just name or Jennifer, just originally from Welsh. Okay, yeah, Jenny. We'd say Jenny to that. There's translation to it, but I don't know what it is. Found out after I named those Irish on Google. Yeah, loads of people take Welsh names. Like my name's Dylan, so and Amy, one of my regs, her son's name's Dylan. So there's a lot of Welsh names out there. A lot of people that got a bit Welsh in them. So right, I'm presuming. Well, I wouldn't say get wrecked, but I would say um, push the D&D gravely. Tush the D&D. That's your ass gravely. Basically, go fuck yourself. Can fuck your down gravely? It picked up the swear words. So touch the D&D gravely. Push the D&D. Bryn. Oh, lovely name. Lovely name. Bryn. No, Bryn is so Bryn in Welsh is hill. We call Bryn Hill. So it's spelled as Bryn. Bryn. Dros y Bryn. So that's over the hill is Dros y Bryn. Bryn Hill. And hill is also known as rhyw. And rhyw is also known as sex. So I sort of go there in, it's fine. It's a Celtic name. So, if it's Irish or Welsh, doesn't matter, it's Celtic. So Bryn is a lovely name. It's a Celtic name, it's a strong name. I was gonna sing. Oh yeah, I don't remember this song it was. Um, Dros y Bryn. I don't remember it. Don't remember the song. So I would normally sing a song, but I can't right now. I'm not doing a gilf one now because I'm tired. I still not get my tits out for you guys. Once I get my tits out, you have to fucking pay for it. I'm not fucking do it for free anymore. I still do it for free. I still do it for free. Um, right. I'm too tired now. It's 2 o'clock in the morning here, and I've only had 4 hours sleep last night. So, um, the guilt shape brings all the all the girls to. Oh, I don't even know it. I don't even know it. But I normally sing the milkshake brings all the gilfs to the yard, and they're like, "I'm better than yours." Damn right, I'm better than yours. I can do something. Ba-ba-ram, bam, bam. My other kid's name means weapons in Latin, so probably weapons. Jesus. Yeah, I don't think Google's your best friend, to be quite honest with you. Miss Malleable, Miss Malleable area. No, hey, that's a good thing, Feral. Everybody. Oh shit, you got a film. Right. Good night, everybody. Good night. I know you got a film to watch. Love you. Take care, everybody. I'm gonna end broadcast now. Oh, I was gonna put a. There we are. Thank you very much. See you later. Thank you all. Ta-ra.